and welcome everyone to a brand new competitive year, a new season of Grandmasters, and most importantly, a new competitive format. Making its debut in week 2 of our first season of Hearthstone Grandmasters this year will be the brand new format called Trio, and fortunately for you, your boy Sottle is here to talk you through exactly how it works. Trio starts with all players in the tournament being offered the same groups of 3 different classes. For example, Druid, Paladin, and Mage. There can be any number of these groups, but crucially, all players receive the same options. Players then select one group of classes blindly without knowing what anyone else in the tournament has selected, but crucially knowing that all players have selected from the same options they did. Importantly, these class buckets do not contain any cards that you must play or even a suggestion of an archetype. Each player has complete freedom to build whatever they like within the classes they have chosen. Once all players have chosen and submitted their lineup, then the actual match format is just good old-fashioned best of 5 conquest, only in this case with no ban, because each player only has a 3-deck lineup. For those of you unfamiliar with conquest, that just means that each player is free to queue any deck they like for the duration of the series, but after each deck wins, it is then no longer eligible for selection. The first player to win with all 3 of their decks is declared victorious and wins the series. So what's the big idea here? Well, we like Conquest as a format. It generally works, it creates interesting strategies and risk-reward calculations which are generally pretty fun to watch. However, there is a risk that, particularly deep into a certain metagame, you create an amount of homogeneity and repetition as these alleged optimal order strategies evolve and players start to follow those strategies. With Trio, you have a lot more agency to force players out of their comfort zone. For example, if a particular class is underrepresented, let's say Warlock, you can force every player to play Warlock by just including Warlock in every single one of the class groupings that are available. Conversely, if a class is overrepresented, let's just say, I don't know, Priest, for example, you could force every player in the tournament not to play Priest by not including Priest in any of the class groupings that are available. You could even do things like pair classically aggro classes alongside classically control classes, which would force players to demonstrate a range of skills. There really are myriad options that you can present to players to make them think outside of the box. And then the layers really start to appear. If you notice that every available set of classes has a Warlock in it, do you build a full anti-Warlock strategy, safe in the knowledge that every opponent you face is 100% guaranteed to have Warlock in their lineup, and you can just beat up on that Warlock and prevent it from getting its required conquest win? Do you make your own Warlock something annoying and off-meta to prevent your opponents from being able to do the same thing to you? But there will be plenty of time for deeper strategy breakdowns during our debut broadcast, which you should absolutely watch, by the way, youtube.com/Hearthstone Esports. In short, Trio format allows a tournament organizer to present a unique, tricky, crunchy puzzle to players to try and solve for each individual tournament or each week of play that they have to face, really putting their game knowledge and their deck building to the test. So that is all you need to know. What is your first impression of the Trio format? What groupings do you think the Hearthstone Esports team are going to throw at our players for our trial week in Grandmasters? Will this format last longer than Specialist? Give me the answer to all those questions, and any questions you might have, put them down below in the comment section, and make sure to hit the subscribe button on the Hearthstone Esports YouTube so that you do not miss a single event in what is sure to be an absolutely packed year of Hearthstone Esports content. Thanks everyone, and take care.
No, he's popping, his fist popping, he did it! Oh my gosh. 72 damage both times. And both times he left damage on the board.
Where is cards green? Right before his cards green! He got there! Oh, sick!
It's so
so powerful, all these rushes. I can't even believe the value he's got.
Labby with a pop-off, well-deserved. He stays in for another series.
Hello everyone and welcome to the final day of this week of the Hearthstone Grandmasters here in the European region. I'm Raven and joining me of course is Sottle, and we'll be taking you through the top 4 and seeing who the champion of week 2 is going to be. Sottle, are you ready? I know we've all made predictions, but are you confident based on maybe even what happened in APAC?
I'm not. For once in history, I lack confidence, Raven. The one thing that I normally have in abundance has deserted me. I think my read was wrong on predictions this time, and we'll talk about it a little bit more as time goes on, but there is a certain deck I have gained a certain amount of respect for in this format, which I may have overlooked. No, not that one, which I may have overlooked when doing my predictions, but we will get into that later, because just in case you were not paying attention for the previous 5 minutes right before we came on air, where I talked about this for 5 minutes straight, or past me talked about this for 5 minutes straight, now present me will talk about this for about 30 seconds. Trio is a new format that we're trying out. Players get handed a selection of classes, 3 classes in groups. You have to pick one of those. Every player in the tournament is given the same options. So you kind of get a built-in meta read on what the tournament is going to look like. For example, for this week, 4 out of the 5 different selections that players could make had Warrior in it. So there was a pretty good read that people were going to play Warrior. So that became a problem that everyone wanted to solve. If I play Warrior, what's my Warrior going to be? If everyone else is playing Warrior, how do I beat their Warrior? It's one of the key questions that you had to answer. Then you get into the 5th bucket, and it's like, well, what if everyone avoids Warrior and picks the other one? So right. each week of Trio is essentially a little bespoke puzzle, right? That changes things up, and it makes players have to adapt and react to kind of a custom meta game that's built in around an individual week of play, which I have found pretty interesting for the week, and it's left us in a weird spot where we're seeing Pirate Warriors and Quest Hunters and even Ping Mages now really fight it out for the top spot because of the way these classes have been broken down, which is just a nice little departure from the norm of just seeing, you know, the top 4 meta decks just battling against each other in Conquest, as things can quite often break down to.
Yeah, and let's be honest, if any format brings Quest Hunter into the spotlight, or Hunter of any kind, I'm in anyway. I'm along for the ride no matter what. As usual, check out the weekly prize. We are in that top 4 position now, though, so anyone you see on stream today across all the regions is getting that minimum of just over $2,000 for their work this week. And then there is still one more week left, which is going to be last hero standing next week to finish off the season for Grandmasters. And it's all about these points. And again, we'll be going through this as the show goes on, as the weekend ends as well. We can give you more of a sort of solid update on where the players will sit, and, you know, do players have opportunities to bank points in the final week to make a big difference to their placement? Potentially, but we will have that a lot more concrete as time goes on, of course, because that last week, next week, will literally be the last opportunity these players have to actually move up or potentially move down in the standings.
Agreed, yes. I'm growing increasingly confident that 6 points is the magic number for this system. We have 2 players that have hit that already, which is SuperFake and Blaze, I believe. But also at this stage, we have no players on 0 points, which means even the likes of Falcane and Frenetic, who have had very bad starts to the season so far, could have a 5-point week next week and still get to that 6-point magic cutoff and make playoffs. So it's super interesting the way this is going to work out with such a shortened format. But here are a few of those players fighting for those points. We kick things off with Viper and SuperFake early on. Viper bringing out the Shadow Priest against SuperFake's lineup, which is significantly less spicy than the one he played previously. But this was probably the highlight game. Viper getting his Mazaki munched by the Mutinous, but then still being able to execute on that hard final cycle of Ignites, just with some lab partner spell damage to seal the game.
Yeah, and even though it was looking great for Viper at this point, the early Carriol plus the Librams of Hope started to be too much, which evened up the series for SuperFake, and then the Demon Hunter just got the job done, right? Too much pressure on the board, not enough damage coming out from the Rogue, which meant SuperFake took the victory. We did then move on to Fury Hunter versus Seiko, and continued to see the power of Quest Hunter as Seiko got off to a quick 2-0 lead, winning with Hunter and Druid, and then things obviously started to look a little bit more difficult as things have all weekend across all regions when Warrior has joined the fray, but Seiko did manage to get it over the line. Moving on.
Yeah, Bunny versus Letter then came along, and this was a weird spot where actually, you know, one of the big meta decks, the Burn Shaman, really came into play from Letter, and actually throughout the week, weirdly, because this is such a different metagame to just the top decks clashing with each other at High Legend Ladder or in a normal Week of Conquest tournament, Burn Shaman has actually looked a little bit weak in comparison to the different matchups that it's playing on the other side. Really, really struggling to find wins through Carriol Roam to get on board quick enough against other decks that can resist the amount of burn that they can throw at them with the heavy control decks coming out. It's been a little bit of a struggle for Shaman overall, and that was no different in that series for Letter, as Bunny was able to take down a clean 3-1 victory.
Yeah, and then we had a pretty back and forth series between Jarla and Sloygrusin. Sloygrusin bringing that Rogue Mage Priest to line up with the Control Priest, grabbing yet again a win versus Warrior here in game number 1, just basically pushing Jarla out of the game, which is what Control Priest is basically built to do with these against these board-focused, aggressive-style decks, as you can see quite clearly here. No chance for Jarla in that one. But Jarla did fight back, and then this Ping Mage in game... Okay, we skipped game 2, but Jarla won with Ping Mage in game 2, never mind. How dare we cut Ping Mage? And then again, Sloygrusin fought back, getting yet another win with Mizaki Mage, another deck he does look very comfortable on. And things did keep going back and forth, but Jarla then did sort of clean out this final game here with a win with Priest versus Rogue. Just going too wide too quickly, and Sloygrusin, most importantly, couldn't get to the cloak into these scabs for that turn 8. Just could not survive long enough, and that has left us with these 4 players left over now in the top 4. SuperFake versus Seiko, first match of the day, then Bunnyhoppor versus Jarla for match number 2. So definitely 2 of the greats going at it, means one of them is getting to the finals of yet another weekly tournament within Grandmasters. But I'll have to say, just very excited to check out this SuperFake versus Seiko matchup, because both players are bringing that Hunter, right? Unless I'm going crazy. No, sorry, SuperFake's bringing the Demon Hunter Warrior Paladin build, like the sort of go-to I want to play Demon Hunter lineup. But Seiko going for the Druid Hunter Warrior, and honestly, the Druid Hunter Warrior, the more I've sort of looked at it all weekend, the more it seems just like a very, very strong pick, because Druid is Druid, right? It's insanely strong. And then Quest Hunter, as you've been mentioning, has been impressing all weekend, and then suddenly, well, you have to bring Warrior, but so does everyone else by the looks of things, right?
Yes.
So at worst, you're on equal footing with what I would say 2 very strong other decks in the lineup.
Yeah, no, and I would agree with that in general, as the Warrior has been a big problem throughout. It's a problem that's had to be solved, and no one has really solved it to a satisfactory level. Like, none of the Warriors have really turned out to be particularly effective. Who has turned out to be particularly effective, though, is SuperFake, who has walked into Grandmasters, as many of our Europe Grandmasters tend to do, and just seemed right at home. There does not seem to be too many growing pains with a lot of our recent additions to Grandmasters. I think some of the earlier promotions have struggled a little bit to find a footing. Falcane, Wama, for example, have struggled a little bit here and there when we had every GM promotion was for a French player for a while. Like
Yep.
a few of them struggled, but since then, Gabby, Bly's, Frenetic, SuperFake, these people coming in have sort of seemed right at home right away. SuperFake with a great performance last week, backing that up now with another one, putting himself in that very, very comfortable position where he has 6 points already, but putting himself in a very uncomfortable position where he's going to have to play some Libram Paladin, Raven, and no one wants to be doing that at a high level. The 3 real problem decks, I think, in this format are Paladin, Warrior, and Rogue, with where we've ended up. Rogue is a very good class with some very good options. Weapon Rogue is a very good deck. Quest Rogue has some good matchups, can be effective in certain spots. but the problem is still the amount of Vipers and Oozes and everything else that's around the rest of the format, because everyone feared Rogue still, with that Mage Rogue Priest bucket looking like the most generically powerful, so people still feared playing that Rogue. So Rogue actually has the lowest win rate in the tournament right now. For this week specifically, Rogue has the lowest win rate, followed by Warrior and then Paladin. And I am going to have to yell at Lorinda just a little bit more, not for anything that he's putting on the screen there for Seiko. But yesterday, he just spent another whole day talking about how bad Paladin is, and then said, you know, Warrior's okay, you know, it doesn't seem to matter which Warrior you bring, they're all about 45%. He can't even read his own stats! Warrior's 42% win rate, it's worse than Paladin this week! Come on, stop changing the narrative.
Well, one deck that isn't bad here before Sol just explodes by the sound of it is this deck from Seiko. It's my preferred version of Kaz Druid with all the tokens in. We've seen, I feel like time and time again, the power of just Glowfly in a lot of matchups and the options it gives you in where you don't have those options with other builds of Kaz. Again, I hope we get to see Frostwolf Kennels do something. I just want to see if it makes much of an impact in any of these matchups. But in general, just a solid deck. And one of the reasons I was talking about earlier where Seiko's lineup just looks good to me, because the Druid is just so strong right now. Hunter seems very strong, and then you do join everyone else in that warrior bin, I suppose, is the best description for that at the moment.
Come on over, everyone! Hop in the warrior bin.
I bet a lot of players are feeling like that right now. Sort of honestly.
Someone please just, you know, Photoshop me a picture of just a giant dumpster with GM's faces popping out of it.
And then Garrosh.
Garrosh in the background, The warrior bin, please, get on it.
Already. With these opening hands, so it's looking all right for SuperFake. You know, Aldor attending on one. And then you look down at Seiko, double Bloom Kaz Lunar Eclipse.
Indeed.
But seriously, how much of this do you even keep? Because personally, I'm not a big fan of keeping the like the whole "let's go crazy with Kaz" turn 2 or something. But I think like one Bloom could have been considered, maybe even the Lunar jump.
Yeah, I generally don't hate keeping Bloom in like really tempo-focused matchups, like when you want to do things quickly. That seems to make sense, right? You just have a Bloom, even if it's Bloom Glowfly on 3 sometimes for 4 or 5 flyers or whatever happened, like that's sometimes a good building point to go from. Just relieve some tempo, that then potentially curves you through to like your overgrowth turn while you're using those 2/2s to fight for board. So I like keeping one Lightning Bloom in a lot of spots. But often that is still alongside something that I know I'm going to be using the Bloom on. I do agree, however, that like Bloom Kaz is probably not as effective as you would want it to be in most situations. So I don't hate Seiko's mulligan here. It makes sense.
Bit of a slow start here from SuperFake. I think the additional 3-drop in the Banana Man is going to be very useful, because before that draw, yes, Vindicator, not bad, draws you a spell, play it, perfect. But this gap on turn 2 and then just staring at the rest of the hand, you would imagine by the time SuperFake gets to 7-8 mana, Seiko will have probably won the game at that point if the hand is that slow from SuperFake, right? So the fact he does have some additional card draw, some buff effects as well, will help him keep at least some level of pressure in the following turns.
I don't know if you noticed it, but that was some proper old school BSing going on there for SuperFake, as on his turn 2 where he could do nothing, he moused over and clicked on and moved around the card Mutinous specifically several times. Which I think the intention of that is to try and give a false hand read to Seiko that that card might have been something playable, and therefore Seiko will rule it out as being the card it is, Mutinous. Which is interesting. I don't think it's going to work. I think that kind of like fake hand read thing went out of fashion quite a long time ago because people realized it really didn't work that often. But still, I don't mind people experimenting with little things like that.
I think also the problem is it seems less good when you have a Libram of Hope that you can't play either, because then Seiko could be like, that card isn't Mutinous, but that one might be.
yeah, that's fair.
Hey, the extra little pressure here is coming along nicely here. Seiko, going into 6 mana, does have Bloom, but already I'm wondering if it's Ramp and then actually just Bloom out Raid Boss next turn.
You could just Bloom out Onyxia, yeah.
Seems like it's going to have more impact, right, than just getting Kaz down early, because you still... The constant issue we talk about and see a lot is blocking Kaz turns by just playing an aggressive board. So if Kaz is just played, is an 8-8 do nothing that turn?
Agreed. Yeah, and I've really liked Raidboss Onyxia in this list for quite some time. Like, we both called out on week 1 that we thought the Glowfire build was the way to go with this deck, and I think more and more over time that is becoming apparent. But I was also in the corner of Raidboss Onyxia being in the deck as well, over like Scale of Onyxia or something like that, because I do feel like this 2-turn punch, which can happen fairly commonly, is so strong, where you use Raidboss Onyxia to fight for tempo on 1 turn, and then that turn where your opponent is forced to deal with your Whelps and your 8-8 instead of the other way around, then you get a clear board to play Kazakhstan on. Like, I understand the downsides, because now your Cold Tooth Mine doesn't draw Kaz, which is, of course, what you really want it to do most of the time. That's a big issue for sure. But I do think, like, this, just as a token druid card, is just so effective at doing what you want it to do.
Yeah, I mean, you'd really struggle to find a board that this doesn't deal with, right? Because the Onyxia gets the free trade because of the immunity, and you can see now there's still an additional Whelp that SuperFake would have to kill before he can even think about dealing with Onyxia. And honestly, even if the turn now is like Mutinous and it does grab, it can't be, but in some circumstances, even if like the big response happens, well, without the 2-1 dying, Onyxia just can trade with most things the turn after as well. It starts to really snowball if you don't have these ways to clear off these Whelps. And you are right, as the backup now, because the Bloom wasn't required because of the ramp from Seiko and the help of the coin, it does mean Kaz can just be landed very safely. And honestly, Seiko could also just not play Kaz next turn and go for either some armor, card draw with Fungal, if he wants to just play that route, which is another reason why I really like this build of the deck.
Move quickly.
But this turn is so rough for SuperFake, right? He can trade the Viper or just play it and hope it's just something to do something with next turn. He could play Broom as well. And do these trades to kill everything, right? It's a clear, because he can move over the Librams.
Oh, he has 2 Librams. Yes, it is indeed, yeah.
Oh, okay, he didn't want to clear. I just leave Onyxia up.
Yeah, he could have done it, right? You just put one Libram on initiative. I mean, you don't even have to put that Libram on the first one, but you should anyway. Make that trade in, and then use the Librams on use at least 2 Librams on the Snake, and then at least 1 Libram on the Broom to be able to clear the 8-8 at the end of it. Like, it was definitely possible.
Mm-hmm. With that previous pick, I'm not sure how closely you're paying attention, but like, how useful is Exerciser in this matchup in general?
Yeah, it's not the worst. I think, you know, ideally you want to get a wand in your deck if you're in a defensive position. So you don't want to pick Exerciser, because then if you have wand, you probably have too much redundancy at that point of one overlapping the other. So I tend not to pick it. But as like a late game pick where I haven't found a wand yet, I do think it's pretty useful against Paladin. But I think mentality-wise here for Seiko, I don't think he cares too much about like removal and defensive options. Like, he has 2 8-8s in play against basically nothing on the other side in comparison. So I think he'll be valuing more aggressive picks in that spot personally.
Yeah, SuperFake knows that Mutinous is now long gone as a prospect, honestly. And Libram of Hope looks like the only thing to really play, unless he wants to roll the dice with the Banana Man. Painful, right? 1 damage off clearing the Onyxia. Oh. Does run double Broom in his list, so there's a chance that the Banner Man draws a Broom. It's small, but it's there. I guess, like, Ariel? Minion? Little Cariel? There you go.
I think Libra of Hope is the worst thing here, though.
Oh, yeah. I think Libra of Hope is absolutely fine. I was just trying to think of other things he could go for.
Yeah, even just preserving the minion, he could have just straight up left the Libram as an 8/8, right? Doesn't really necessarily need it to be much more of an 8/8 in this position. So he could have kept the other 3/3 gone face, been a little bit more aggressive in that spot. Ray Boss and Ixia can attack here. It's just a little bit weird, a little bit of a visual bug that I assume is something to do with the gaining and losing of immunity at various points.
Really interesting pick there from Seiko to actually go for the Fungal Fortunes and not Moonlit first. I mean, he still has plenty of cards to Moonlit, but, you know, like if he drew double of a card, he would have really liked to get an additional one of. But here, no, Mishami Knife. You don't really come back from this, do you?
24. It feels so much like there's a random cheeky lethal here somewhere, but there just isn't. Like, blooming out the solar alongside any of these spells doesn't actually do anything. Like, solar army knife does not really achieve anything. Solar banana split doesn't really help. So yeah, he'll just have to take his 6 off.
Really? It's not too heavy.
And now, in any world where there isn't a big taunt that he can't deal with, he just has Solar Moon Touch, Solar Feral Rage, whatever he needs.
Yeah, I mean, this is...
With
almost...
Wand, right?
Exactly, yeah. He could just go Wand, Bloom, Solar, whatever. Like, he has infinite mana, infinite damage, infinite removal. Such is the way of the Kazakhstan treasures, and that is Kazakhstan Druid coming to the fore. For Seiko, token-heavy build, Ray Boss and Ixia, I think giving himself a good amount of security in some interesting matchups. Frostwolf Kennels, yeah, I'm still not convinced about that one. Like,
only because you've not seen it yet, Saul.
I mean, that is true. Yeah, certainly me and Seiko have had our moments. I think I love Seiko as a player. His deck building is my #1 criticism of the way that he plays the game. So, you know, this deck is very Seiko. There's a ton of one-offs. It's just something that he loves to do, which I philosophically oppose. But I do love the Ray Boss and Ixia inclusion. I do understand, again, the problem that creates with Cold Tooth Mine, but Seiko just decided to go, all right, well, in that case, I don't need Cold Tooth Mine. What now? I'll just play a bunch of other random cards instead. But the Druid, for me, is a fear in Seiko's lineup as well. I thought that Druid would be punished a little bit more heavily, perhaps even in this series, because of the lineup against what SuperFake had. Like the Demon Hunter, sure, that can struggle a little bit. Druid existing is kind of the one thing that's stopping Fel Demon Hunter just being unbeatable force in the metagame right now. But the other two decks of Pirate Warrior and Paladin, you feel like they might just be able to dump enough stats on board quickly enough to beat up on the Druid, but that has proven not to be the case in step #1 here in this series for Seiko. And it's looking very much like Seiko might have his own way with this series from here.
Yep, starting now with SuperFake is moving over to his Demon Hunter, wants a break from Libram Paladin, and let's be honest, who can blame him? He's going to be playing the standard Demon Hunter list now. I think we did see lists without expendables, but I believe every single list this week, or at least in Europe, is running it. I can't 100% say for the other regions, but it feels like it, and I do think everyone's kind of settled on the cards are just good enough to fit in the deck, right? And on the other side, we do have Seiko on this Quest Hunter. Again, a build I do like. I still can't quite decide whether I like Rinlin's Rifle in this list, even though I think the card itself is insane, because it's just another card that isn't a spell. You know what I mean? Like, when you're already running additional minions too, like not only Double Viper Slate, but Shopkeep as well, and the hero. Like, it's a lot of not spell cards, but Seiko does have very specific ways to play this deck. I was talking to him the other day about it and just different approaches to different matchups. So I am still confident that Seiko can make this work. And honestly, as seems to be the case this weekend, Sol, I feel like Seiko's in a good spot if he can win with his warrior.
Yes, indeed. And this is the deck I was alluding to earlier, where I think when I was making my predictions, I undervalued Quest Hunter significantly in terms of how the matchups were going to break down. I think we saw that in APAC, where both players who made final had Quest Hunter in their lineup. I had Alan. I was expecting him to kind of get through the aggro match he had in the semi-final and then win out in the final as well. But my theoretical matchup chart, I think, didn't really account for how good Quest Hunter was in some of these matchups. That is this archetype in general, not necessarily this build from Seiko, because I do agree this Drekthar stuff that people are doing is introducing a huge element of high roll to the deck, of course, but a level of inconsistency. And I do wonder with Quest Hunter whether it's a deck that wants to trend towards the median more as opposed to having like high roll, low roll outcomes. Because by putting these minions in your deck with Drekthar, you then open up the possibility that your opening draw is like minion, Rinling's Rifle, right? Something that you were talking about. And then suddenly you're just not getting any quest progression at all. Certainly my experience playing Quest Hunter is that you just want to draw cards that proc your quest every single turn until your quest is done and then win the game. So having cards that interrupt that can be a pretty significant problem.
The one thing I will say in defense, and again, I still think maybe Seiko has one too many cards like that, but he is running Beastalker Tavish as well, right? Which does change the pace in which you necessarily want to complete the quest. So that is something to bear in mind. It's not always an absolute mad rush to just throw damage everywhere you can, get hero power for free, go, 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 go. In some matchups, it is a benefit to go just a little bit slower. But you are right. I mean, look at this hand, right? Viper makes the cut in the list with Drekthar because it's Rust Drop Viper. Weapon removal if needed in certain matchups. If not, trade it back, and then if you do get Drekthar, it's still pulling out the extra minions. So yes, you don't want them in your opening hand, but it's something that Seiko can do is just shuffle one away at least, maybe. Spend that 1 mana to go dig in for something more playable.
And now we have an interesting dynamic here already. SuperFake knows he's dealing with 2 Vipers on the other side. I think he's just trying to assess the early turns here, which all he really seen was Quest on 1, Quick Shot on 2. But what does Quick Shot on 2 mean? That's not really a premium option for your opponent to play on turn 2, right? Normally, you would try and wait for them to gain a little bit of value from it long term.
I think less so in this deck, because there's a Ferocious Howl. I think Dragonbane Shot you want to hold. You wouldn't just Dragonbane Shot face instead of Quick Shot. I think I would rather Quick Shot face in general. And then Arcane Shot pass wouldn't work. Like, oh my, on the Hunt? Am I just forgetting Hunter card names? But a lot of the 1-cost cards don't feel like it would work either. I don't
Wound Prey? Is that what you were going
Prey
for?
On the Hunt. I'm just designing the next set. Sorry, guys. It'll be there in the core set soon. But yeah, I think it's really difficult to judge whether Quick Shot means the hand is trash or whether it's just a damage hand and it's just fitting the curve.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
I do think
SuperFake did choose to go with the weapon. He did get hit with the Viper. Now we get the far more funnier decision as to whether weapon number 2. Okay, he finds the glide instead.
Funnily enough, maybe minus the coin, Seiko's probably okay with that. He doesn't want SuperFake to complete quest, of course, but swapping out his hand, which still contained a Viper, contained a tracking as well. It's like, at this moment in time, probably okay. And get that played. I don't know if you heard me on day 1, but I think it came up twice, where Drekthar was drawn already for turn 4, or 3 with coin.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but if you wait a turn, you could do this. And I was like, wait a minute, what am I talking about? If you put Drekthar in your deck and you get it anywhere remotely on curve, you play Drekthar. That's just a hard rule right now.
Agreed.
Look at the pressure. Ooh.
Yeah, Arcanist Fell Barrage is available, which will clean up about half of this board state. Fury Hero Power can come through to support that as well, to kill 1 more of the 4 health minions. But it's a whole turn of not doing a lot.
Well, the problem is it's a whole turn of not doing a lot, and also it feels like he's not going to do a lot next turn if he does all this, right? Then he just has Deadeye and Magtheridon, and that's it. You get to kill the Drekthar for a little cheeky 1 damage bonus. Ooh. Moonprey piercing shot his own 1-1. Go face for 3. We're picking up what I'm putting down, so.
Is the 2 damage over shooting the 1-3 better than just using the piercing shot to remove the 1-3? Because then you theoretically just have a 1-1 on board that might just attack for 1, get hero powered next turn, makes up that damage immediately.
And also be a Fell Scream, though, which is
That's
what
true.
I think about. I also just think this 1-3 means nothing to you right now. Push more damage, play 2 spells, and just push absolute max damage. It looks like Seiko's going to take it a little bit slower, and maybe I'm too hot-headed when it comes to just launching damage to face, but the only thing I would think about is, does this actually end up healing? Maybe seeing an Arcanist, knowing SuperFake's only got 2 cards in hand, means that Seiko doesn't feel like he has to rush, but it's just 2 different mindsets, right? It's like, I'm ahead, so I don't have to go nuts, or I'm ahead, I'm going to go nuts and just kill him, right? It's very difficult to choose between those 2 options.
Yeah, I agree with this. I think even if that 1-1 gets hero powered this turn, at that point you've only lost 1 damage, and I think the upside of the extra minion on board can easily compensate for the fact that you have lost 2 potential damage with that piercing shot. The point about Fell Screen Blast is a good one, but I think at some point, if SuperFake finds Fell Screen Blast, he'll get value out of Fell Screen Blast regardless.
And trust me, if that Expendables was a Fell Screen Blast, I would have said, look, strictly wrong.
Yes.
Unpunished.
Yes.
But yeah, you are right in general, like Demon Hunter can find targets. Hey, though, look at this. It's miserable, isn't it? The problem as well is you could say, okay, if you can hold on for 1 more turn, you can Expendables, clear the board, and have minions for pressure. Hunter's okay with you having minions. That gives them something to shoot. Like,
Yeah.
that solves 1 damage. The cheeky one.
Yeah, but I think, again, if you break down the situation, like, draw cards pass, hero power your 1-1, I missed 1 damage because, my opponent had no way to spend their mana and therefore hero powered my 1-1. It's probably fine, right? Like, I think Seiko is happy with the situation where SuperFake didn't have anything to do with his cards that turn, and so instead hero powered a 1-1.
This is tricky. Bowler shot could go on his Viper, no problem. What?
It's just you did like a little noise into the lead into that, so you said air bowler shot.
Oh. I did not mean to. Yeah, bowler shot. I'm just working out and this is what you have to do sometimes in these weird matchups, is see how much value just burning your own minions is worth, because not only is it quest progression, but it's also Furious Howl in hand. And Furious Howl could just end the game next turn. So that's 0 cost. Hero power, yeah, and he's going to push the 5. This is really nice, yeah. I like this.
Hero power, yeah. 3 damage from the Overwhelm. Snaky Boy is a beast, getting that extra damage bonus, taking it down to 1. Perfect piercing shot value. Sets this up now for the following turn.
Ooh, close.
Strictly correct. By the time Fell Screen Blast came out, there was no minions left to kill anyway.
Someone who complains a lot about results-oriented thinking. Quick to join in, Sottle.
That was the point. It's
I know.
parody. Welcome.
No, I'm still now saying you're just being hypocritical.
Oh, okay. It'd be a weird world if, like, at any point satire happened, people just pointed at it as hypocrisy. It's like,
Yeah.
wait, you're doing the same thing you're making fun of. Okay.
You
sit
fool!
down. Let's have a talk. You don't seem to have understood.
Why does your thing overrule my thing? Well, you didn't want to see a second bowler shot, I'll tell you that for nothing. Tracking? Literally any damage spell. There we go.
Cards. Yeah, Arcane Shot.
Oh, wow. That was very one-sided.
It was.
Seiko. Very smooth 2-0 lead so far in this series, but again, we will talk about it. We'll keep talking about it, probably until the week is over, but it is going to be this warrior now for Seiko. It is going to be the Pirate Warrior, and that's all he has left to win with to go into the finals, and you know, can still be difficult, but bear in mind, SuperFake also has Warrior, has Paladin, and has that Demon Hunter we did just see as well. So we'll see where SuperFake's mindset is to what deck he wants to start with in this series now, to see what he's going to go to give him the best chance. Paladin is going to be his choice into the Warrior Subtle.
It is indeed, and I think, again, we've talked about it a lot, and as you said, we will continue to do so. His matchups against Warrior are fine. Obviously, he has the Mirror, which is kind of 50-50 by definition. Demon Hunter is a pretty good matchup, perhaps not as good. I'd say Pirate Warrior is almost the best of the aggro decks at dealing with Demon Hunter overall, just because of the extra chunk they have with some of their minions and the fact they don't ever really run out of gas, whereas Fell Demon Hunter as an anti-aggro deck kind of relies on that point where the opponent runs out of gas, right? If you look at the Shadow Priest matchup, Face Hunter matchup, that kind of thing, you just survive and heal until they run out of gas, and then the game's super easy from there. That doesn't really happen for Pirate Warrior, so you actually have to find time to find a win condition with Demon Hunter, which is a little bit more difficult than some of the others. But yes, Warrior is the biggest problem that all of our players have had to solve this time around. So even though we are now 2-0 in the series, it is Warrior time for Seiko, and he will be hoping against hope that he can just be blessed with the absolute nuts this game and just steamroll the opponent to a 3-0.
And some interesting choices, as is always the case with Seiko's builds. He isn't playing the hero Rukara, so he doesn't have that potential extra big burst, especially versus Paladin, right? Libram of Hope, you equip the weapon, just smack the 8/8 back in their face. But he is running Barov and double Rustrot Viper, so the Carriol immovable object is probably going to be movable at that point with the Viper. And he does have that Barov, which can help if SuperFake starts to just get ahead on board, because a lot of this is going to be extremely board focused.
That Blood Cell Raider was one of the best draws in the deck. Very, very 3-drop heavy is Pirate Warrior, as we are very well aware at this point. Seiko was having that possibility of armor pass on turn 2, which is normally death for a Pirate Warrior, but having now found that 2-3, he will be able to push a little bit of extra damage here in the early game. However, SuperFake did find one of the best mulligans possible for this deck. He did miss Outdoor Attendant or any of his 1-drops on 1, but going Banana Man, Samuro, Truthseeker into Truthseeker is about as good of a mid-game curve as you can possibly get with this deck.
It'll be interesting now. I imagine it depends how much Seiko's thinking about Samuro, especially after seeing Bannerman now. But I do wonder how these trades happen. Like, we can see that even obviously he's got the weapon, so it's not too much of a problem. But there's potential where he needs to really defend anything high health, right, and not take the health value trades and just take the I need to keep my minions topped up kind of trades instead.
I do enjoy like the once per broadcast when you actually call it Bannerman, just to remind everyone that we do actually know what the card is.
You do need a point of reference. Yeah. If we just keep saying Banana Man, everyone will be like, where's Mooklet? I don't see it in the hand. So I do have to call it Bannerman at one point or another, so people can be like, that's what they're on about. Got it.
Oh, I see.
I let people into the in-joke between us.
Yes. Yeah, I did enjoy Lorinda's moment of realization. TJ was explaining that, they have running jokes that have been going for almost a year at this point, and that if you've missed any moment of any podcast, you just don't understand what they're talking about. And there was this moment of reflection from Lorinda. It's like, now you've explained it like that, have you ever considered that maybe we shouldn't be doing that?
I mean, I did tune into a broadcast the other day towards the end of America's and got them going, oh, okay, Knight Rider, no problem, chicken scratch. Right, we're out. Take us out, Rubber Ducky. And I'm like...
that was good, though.
Was it just water I was drinking? Or like... Yeah, it was very, very strange, but funny. I'll see Captain doing a lot here, actually, for Seiko, right? It's so much, like, trade potential because of the extra damage on these minions. Allow him to get through pretty smoothly in a lot of cases. That even that turn in some Pirate Warrior matchups would actually just feel like it ends the game.
Agreed, yeah.
Samuro can hit for 3, right, with the Libram now?
Yes.
That's half the board cleared up, if you choose. He also surely can't feel like he can take much more damage, right? Already on 15 and not a Libram of Hope in sight.
Yeah, it's a full board clear if he wants to use the broom as well, right? Which I think is probably wise in this position.
He's got a spare.
Yeah. Just take the swing, be ahead on board. I suppose ahead on board is a bit of an overstatement because the only minion you have is just straight up dead to the weapon anyway, but do.
Oh, double 3-drop is nice. The only thing then he'll really want to draw a 1 or 2-drop pirate next turn.
You swing first and then play double pirate, right? Because even in the 25% scenario where both cannons hit the minion, you've then lost damage technically anyway. I suppose, okay, in the 25% scenario where both cannons hit the minion, you've broken even on damage because you then get to buff your weapon first and go face with it instead. But that's not actually a reward, is it? So just I think removing the risk and doing it that way around.
Yeah, this guarantees 4 damage to face, right?
Yep.
Like, in whichever way you slice it, so...
Exactly.
Another Truth Seeker is available. SuperFake will really want this to be a Libram of Hope, but I, think it was Wisdom.
I'm going to throw the book at you.
Now Seiko will really need a 2-drop pirate, or 1-drop, of course. He'll really want Rakara down ASAP.
Yeah, or just a source of 1 damage I think he would take in this spot.
And trade
Oh,
the
that's such an annoying draw. You don't want to trade the Viper, though. You're going to, but you know you're rolling into carry all turn, right? Where potentially that Viper could be the nuts.
Yeah.
Fire's Cannoneer is a really good pickup, though, potentially, just to improve the breakpoints on this Outdoor Truth Seeker.
Now, does he ever put the 4-3 in first?
So many choices.
Because if he plays kind of swings,
Yeah.
then he could, even if both hit, there'll still be 1 health, which you can trade the cargo guard with. That's fine.
Yes.
I wonder if it's ever worthwhile just putting the damage in. It only needs 1 cannon, and maybe you clear both minions and go face with the cargo.
Yeah, I think the fact that you clear with the 2-4 anyway, even if both hit, and the both hitting is incredibly unlikely, right? 1 in 3 twice.
Yeah.
And even in that scenario, you do then just get to trade with the 2-4 and go face for more damage with the 4-3 anyway, which I think probably makes doing it that way around worthwhile. I like where your head's at.
SuperFake does have his small carriel to trade in with this Cannoneer, but again, he knows Rakara's a problem. That's another anointment which can get hope. Is that not?
That's Hand of a Doll again!
Oh, the whole game changes. The game doesn't end, but it changes a lot more in SuperFake's favor if he got a Libram of Hope in any of his Night of Anointments there.
Yep. And the real problem now is that he has to draw the hopes naturally now, right? He's out of ways to tutor them from the deck.
Because they're not 3, right? So...
They are currently 4, I believe. Yeah. Maybe even 5. Did a Little Outdoor even come down this game? I'm not sure it did.
Oh no, I think that was game 1, the 1-3-on-1, wasn't it?
I think it's just double Truth Seeker in terms of discounts so far this game.
Like, Broom has to come down.
Broom hand. Some value trades with a Wisdom. Okay. Getting a little greedier with the second Broom. Which makes sense. He has Broom Barov as a combo in hand, right? Which I can respect him being a little bit greedier with him.
Yeah, I guess. He's just Omega dead to smite, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So...
Maybe
I think right now, if you're playing around Smite, that's kind of a fool's errand, right? Like, you can play around Smite for 1 turn, and then you'd have to draw exactly Hope off the top next turn, right? Or else the Smite is just always going to kill you on the second turn anyway. So I think just forgetting Smite exists is probably a decent idea just for now.
I actually think, like, Barov, Rakara,
choices.
trade 1? Ever...
Interesting, yeah.
Otherwise, it's Rakara Hero Power Pass, because I think Seiko needs Rakara. He wants the cannon start shooting, he wants the additional weapons. He can kind of re-roll a bad weapon with his Sword Eater the turn after. But this is, he needs this to pressure out the game. If a Carriol comes down next turn from SuperFake, if a Libram of Hope comes down, he wants the Rakara already there, summoning stuff, appealing shields with cannons and so on.
Yeah.
But I do like this overall. It's just the most pressure.
It is, yeah. You do also have to trade as well, because obviously you know Libram of Wisdom hanging around on the other side. It can trade in, it can buff up the 1 health minions so they don't have 1 health anymore. Deal with the Barov, survive, kill the Rakara, like all sorts of things go very badly wrong if you don't make the trade after the Barov there.
It's worth one snaky trade here, just to see if he gets Carriol. Last mana for
who would win? An army of pirates or 1 snaky trade? Is that?
I mean, let's find out. SuperFake, lock it in. I just think it's worth it, right? Because he can still do enough stuff with 7 mana. He has double 3-drops. He has Broom, 0 cost Libram of Wisdom. If you hit Carriol, I feel like there's a chance.
You hit Hope.
Yeah, sure. There's still multiple draws, but that is not one of them.
It's the army of pirates, Raven. Of course it's the army of pirates. This sounds like a stupid question now we think about it.
Yeah.
Do try to keep yourselves alive.
Counter Barov. Very nice. Using Seiko's own Barov to work against him, dropping that Libram of Wisdom. Be able to come down. And I think SuperFake might have already seen the outcome from this Juggernaut.
Smite.
Gorehowl. Monster Gorehowl! 7 damage to face!
Wow.
That is what it takes to get a win with Pirate Warrior in this format, Raven. That is what you need right there. SuperFake waves goodbye. He still has every reason to be happy with his couple of weeks' work so far. He's found himself on 6 points already, so he is going to be in business, I think, when it comes through to playoffs. Fantastic first season for him, giving himself maximum chance now to go through to Grandmasters last call later on in the year, put himself in that great position for World Championship spots as well. And just been a pleasure to watch. Like, even though he's probably locked up in a good position, I just really hope he makes it back to stream next week, because I want to watch SuperFake again. He's good value.
Honestly, Sol, based on his performance so far and the fact he got into GM in the first place in EU, I think we will see him next week. He's been doing really well. It looks like even in defeat, his attitude is still good, right? He's still looking, like he's having a fun time, even though he just got dumpstered, like 3-0'd. But it was 3-0'd in the semi-finals, so he's gone second place, top 4 in his first 2 weeks of Grandmasters. Extremely impressive from him. And yeah, I sort of echo you. 1, I enjoy watching him play, and 2, I think we will get to see him next week. But congratulations to Seiko there. Just what a way to kick off your day on the final day of Grandmasters for this week. It's just straight into the finals. 3-0, you're in there, and now he just has to wait his opponent between Jarla and Bunnyhoppor. But again, yes, obviously the Warrior got help with the Gorehowl, but I feel like that happens every time. But for me, it's just the Hunter looked good. The Druid looked great. Like, the lineup just feels good enough, especially when either opponent here, whether it is Bunnyhoppor or Jarla, I believe, like, they're running Warrior as well, right? So all 3 of you have, like, the same handicap, so to speak. So I think with Seiko's other 2 decks, he's got to be feeling confident now.
Yeah, I think so too. And as a supportive teammate, the captain of Team Europe over here, I'm very pleased that I think you've made very good predictions this week, Raven. I think you were very unlucky not to have picked up the win in APAC with your Mighty prediction. I think Seiko's a great pick. So once again, Team Europe over here, led by me with some excellent support coming in this week from Raven, is doing pretty great in predictions overall. So seems good.
I'll get you back for this, Sol, when you least expect it. But we are going to go to a break while we set up the second semi-final, of course. It's going to be Bunnyhoppor versus Jarla, 2 of the truly great European Grandmasters. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back. We are back and good to go with our second match of the day. Is going to be Jarla versus Bunnyhoppor. And then after that, we'll have the finals between Seiko and whoever wins this match. So a bit of a shorter day, as is often the case on a Sunday here. So make sure you stick around because there's only so much Hearthstone to go around today. Bunnyhoppor on one side there, going to be bringing the lineup we've seen quite a lot over in Europe, the Paladin, Demon Hunter, Warrior lineup, whereas Jarla's bringing what basically equates to a fairly aggressive lineup with Pirate Warrior, Ping Mage, and Shadow Priest from him.
Ah, yes, that famous aggro deck, Ping Mage, of course.
It's more aggressive than a lot of decks right now.
No, it is, and I do kind of agree with what you're saying. It is a surprisingly aggressive deck. It feels like when you look at it by design, you know, you get this initial Frostlich Jaina vibe, right? Of this deck with ice barriers and removal and devolving missiles that curves into a mage hero, and you're like, oh goodness, not this. I can't see one more water elemental ever again. But instead of summoning a water elemental every turn, you just cast Mask of Cthulhu every turn, and that's much more fun, Raven, and I think we could all get on board with that.
We will never get to the point where in a broadcast we will spend a whole few days not saying the name of a card because we've seen it so much, which happened in HGG a while back now, so we won't go further into that story yet. But we do see Bunnyhoppor fell Demon Hunter. There was a nice stat there, and I think that one stat really just displays why people have chosen this lineup, or why I feel they have, is Bunnyhoppor is 4-0 with Fell Demon Hunter. He's not lost a game with it there this week, and it's doing well. That's not too much of a surprise. It's the other decks that are the question marks in the lineup. So again, starting with that Fell Demon Hunter, looks like it's going to have some half-decent matchups at very worst. But then we check out Jarla, of course. The player who always makes the playoffs, or that's what it feels like anyway. Yeah, bringing this fairly aggressive lineup overall. The Shadow Priest is one that I thought we'd see a lot more of. I actually thought the power of Shadow Priest would have made a lot more people choose the Priest lineup and go that way, instead of the pretty large amount of Control Priest we've seen.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I do think that Control Priest as a deck made sense with the way the buckets were broken down. I talked about this yesterday. If you're expecting the aggro to come back the other way with the Shadow Priest, Pirate Warrior, you can kind of put Quest Hunter in there as an aggro deck as well. Control Priest, you know, can sustain for a very, very long time against Quest Hunter even as well with the amount of damage that can come out. I think Control Priest is probably the best control deck that's available in this format, significantly better than Control Warrior with Kazakhstan or Control Warrior with Charge, for example. It's just that the way the buckets broke down, you couldn't really make like a hard control target Shadow Priest kind of line up with that Priest, so I think that's what led a few more people to be a bit more split. Some people just went, yeah, Control Priest, good deck, I'll go with it, and then more people were like Jarla were going, well, I think there's a more holistic strategy if I go with the Shadow Priest instead. So I do think that's very, very interesting. But on the subject of Jarla's lineup and on the subject of undefeated decks, you said that Bunnyhoppor is undefeated with the Demon Hunter this week, and you're absolutely correct. Jarla is undefeated with the Ping Mage this week. And so here we are in the opener with one of these two decks about to lose that perfect record.
Yeah, I didn't really mention Ping Mage because obviously Ping Mage is the best, so it's going to grab all the wins. But just look at this matchup in general. What do you think about this one? Because it's a strange one. Ping Mage does play minions, but minions aren't the core of the deck, right?
Yes.
Like they do want a curve, but the curve often isn't important in a lot of matchups. And they do push a lot of consistent damage, especially with an opener like this from Jarla. Like, do you think it's enough to beat the potential heal and potential burst of this Fell Demon Hunter from Bunny?
I do, in theory. I don't know where I would say, like, in terms of definitively saying this deck is favored, I'm not sure, but just breaking it down, like, card by card, couple of ice barriers and a tutor effect for ice barrier in Jarla's deck, which is a card that Bunny has to interact with at some point, right? So Jarla potentially is starting the game at 46 health, which is a big deal. You talk about how the amount of minions that Mage plays, well, we can start talking about the amount of minions that Bunny plays, because Fell Demon Hunter does not play many, and if you don't play many minions, you're going to be taking 10 a turn from Mask of Cthulhu very, very rapidly if the draw comes together. So I think the burst potential from Jarla can have a big deal here, can be a big deal here as well. The one big X factor in that, I think, is Magtheridon for Bunnyhoppor. If Bunny can land an early Magtheridon, then that becomes a nightmare for Jarla to deal with. No real way of answering that right up until Mass Polymorph, outside of Devolving Missiles, which is really the one out for Jarla at that point. But that is a 2-of copy of a single card in the whole deck. And this deck does not draw a ton of cards. It has a little bit of card draw sprinkled in there, but so I think it's going to be back and forth in general, but I do just want to give a shout out to Bunnyhoppor as well. Link's a little bit tenuous, but this kind of deck, Fell Demon Hunter, where it's sort of bits and pieces all put together to find sort of creative win conditions here and there. Like, you're piecing together damage. Sometimes you use the Expendables combo, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just get there with Jace. Sometimes you just have to win on board with Magtheridon. It's just sort of a collection of good cards where you sort of invent a strategy as you go along. Those are the deck that I think Bunny is one of the best in the world at playing. Because you look at similar things like old school Secret Rogue, for example, right?
Oh, yeah.
A very different deck with a very similar idea. You start a game, and then you have to wait until about halfway through the game until you figure out what your actual win condition in that game is going to end up being. And Bunny was, you know, perhaps the absolute GOAT at that kind of deck. So more than anything else, I'm just looking forward to seeing two of the world's best players going up against each other, win an interesting matchup that we don't get to see every day, Raven.
And he does have an option here at Eldrazi Warblades, but he's running through a similar issue. We just saw SuperFake run into is, do you want to preload that when your opponent plays double Rust Drop? Only thing to consider, I think, for Bunnyhoppor is that Jarla full kept his mulligan, right? It was a very good offering, so I don't blame him at all. Like, the whole reduction on Mask, having Wildfire there and some minions all looked great. But maybe the full keep, like, in this matchup, if you were Mage, would you keep a Viper? Feel like no?
I also feel like no.
Yeah, maybe that would be enough to make you think, oh, maybe I can just get away with equipping this. But Bunnyhoppor is just going to go a bit slower, just lock in the hero power, because he can later on just go Warblades, Fury, for example, for a big heal after a Mask has landed to sort of beef himself back up health-wise.
My goodness, that water looks so clear. Bunnyhoppor's Norwegian mountain crystal water that he's currently drinking.
Oh, yeah. Literally just makes you smarter.
It's been Bunny's secret all along.
Oh, yeah. He drinks water. Oh, no. Why did I not think of this?
He was an absolute moron before he started drinking Norwegian mountain water.
Not sponsored by Norwegian mountain water, just so everyone knows.
Other countries and waters are available. Most are not as good as Norway.
And again, like, the weapon is tempting, but as you said, the barrier's there. He does have to hit through it, so that's something he's got to get over while, you know, at some point in this game. But this is a big question, because if he goes Chaos Strike just to draw a card and push, he is reducing the potential big heal that's available with this Eldrazi in hand. Ooh. So I think it's a really tough decision based on his hand right now.
And that was a big whiff. Wanted the Spectral Sight there as opposed to the Glide. Lost the 50-50.
Oh.
That is an incredibly awkward Hearthstone there for the Bunny.
And again, you mentioned this deck from Jarla doesn't have access to a lot of card draw, which is completely true, but Jarla has like just enough now, right? He has an Arcane Intellect, and normally you only need a bit of card draw to help out, and that is just approximately 1 million damage in a couple of turns. The parrot wearing a mask. What?
Oh, it's just a funny image.
What to do?
Just a parrot appears with a mask on, and then because it's disguised, it does 10 damage to you somehow.
Yeah.
Quite sure how the logic behind this works.
Yeah. It's such a good mask, you don't think it's a parrot, and it whacks you with its beak. Oh, okay, whoa. A lucky hit there.
But it's a Mask of Cthulhu, so, like, the theory then being you didn't think it was a parrot, you thought it was a tentacle monster, and were therefore less scared of it, and it was able to surprise attack you?
Yeah, because you're looking
I'm not sure
for...
this is adding up.
You're looking for big tentacles, and then bop, like the beak comes out of nowhere right in front of you.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Only slight downside with this hand, if we're being picky as well for Jarla, is that the Mordresh, I feel, will be quite difficult to pull off this game. Because, one, there's no Reckless Apprentice yet, but also, there isn't really a lot of minions. So the Reckless Apprentice is just like one extra hero power. So actually getting that to 10 is going to be a little bit tough. He does get a lot of card draw now with that Need for Greed. Pushes a little bit more damage and has a much more optimistic looking hand, right? Has the Magtheridon, has a way to proc the Magtheridon as well.
What to do? What to
I also wonder how useful this timing of the amplified Snow Flurry is going to be. Because if he can pair that freeze ping with a mask into mask turn,
Yes.
and there's no Aldraki Warblade swing coming his way, so he knows the heal is limited to exactly Fell Screen Blast or discovered options, of course.
Which is why I really like this. So there's some high-level stuff going on between both players here. So Bunny's been deliberately holding the entire left-hand side of his hand for quite some time, right? Which is Warblades, Fury, Fury. We've talked about the Viper and how big of an impact that has. So Bunny just doesn't want to preload the Warblades at any point because he doesn't want it to be dealt with. He knows if he just gets repeatedly masked and can't heal in between, he's in trouble. So Jarla, now recognizing that situation, pings first, then loads up the Snow Flurry. So next turn, as Raven was saying, he can dump 10 damage and freeze the face so that Warblades cannot be used to heal. And that gives him an outside chance at Parrot in a Mask, Tentacle Beak Slap for 10 more damage to end the game on the next turn. It's unlikely that that's enough damage to get the job done, but it does at least prevent that healing coming through. Bunny now reacts to this and says, well, okay, if I don't get to attack next turn, then I suppose I'd better take the healing right now.
Yeah, he'll take his 5 and be okay with it. Also important, there is the Magtheridon and a way to put 12 stats on board, but there's also Devolving Missiles, of which Jarla runs 2, and he has 1 of which in his hand, right? So without any glide shenanigans, which Bunny has opened up for as well, which is very nice with this play from Bunny. He is able to glide next turn. There's a lot of back and forth already in this game, right? It's kind of sick.
There is, yeah, nod from Bunny. He now understands that his read is correct, and now this play, unlocking the left-hand side of his hand, as I was talking about, this was beautiful because he knows he's going to get frozen here, so he can't compensate with the healing. But as Raven has just pointed out as well, he has now unlocked the left-hand side of his hand. So presumably, Jarla had a plan here, right? Presumably, it was Mask into Para or Mask into Jaina, something like that. That's why he'd set up this way. So Bunny now has the option, if he wants, to be able to disrupt all of that with the glide.
I like the fact that you're so scarred, even just mentioning the HGG meta. You just said Jaina instead of Dawn Grasp. But, yeah.
Did I? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you just like, oh, all I can think about is Jaina now.
I know, I just got Frostless Jaina in my head now.
I saw a frozen ping, and it's too much.
Yeah, true, actually. Yeah, good point.
Is there anything worthwhile doing before the glide? I guess nothing's really possible at this point with the draw. He could have gone with the Arcanist Fell Scream, right, instead, and I guess he's doing that now instead to get the Magtheridon up. But now there is Devolving with the Parrot as well. Yep. Huge bonus. Evolve, right? Yep. Oh.
Look, sometimes you've just got to be doubly sure, read the Parrot a couple of times, make sure that you're not messing this up
I
by
do
casting
that,
Devolving
actually.
Missiles
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, I do that, to be fair.
Sometimes you have to be sure, okay?
I wonder.
I wonder if Jarla's actually thinking whether Reckless Apprentice hero power is just fine, because then he can start to stack the Mordresh. That's what, 6? He just Reckless hero powers?
I still think just because you're playing against Demon Hunter, planning long term about, okay, I'm going to play this card this turn, then I'm going to play this card next turn. No, you're not going to play any of those cards because you're going to get glidden at some point. Like, just for me, the best way to play against Demon Hunter is just to do the most generically powerful thing you can do on each turn and just play with whatever hand you get dealt on the next turn because it's probably going to change.
I just wonder if, like, this is still strong. It pushes a lot of damage still, like, well, a solid amount of damage.
Fair.
There's a minion on board. The weapon's already there. So if Bunny plays, like, Jace this turn, that damage is going away from the parrot, basically.
Okay.
I think I like this because there's still another mask, another parrot in the deck, and Dawn Grasp. So there's still 3 more masks, including that parrot. So if you get Glidden, then there's still a solid chance that Jarla gets to mask anyway next turn. And this just helps him with a potential Modresh as well. Because that damage never goes away. Modresh doesn't have to be in hand, right?
No, but, well, I mean, Modresh has to be in hand for you to play it, which is...
Yeah, I just mean that, yeah, if there's a glide, there's arguably outcomes of more damage at that point.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I think he can Modresh now, right? If I've
It's ready.
done the maths. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Good to go.
And in this instance, I do just play Modresh. It's a big dude. It deals 10 to everything, and Bunny's face just happened, so you know it was the right play.
Bunny's face just happened.
Yeah. Did you see the face he pulled?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That happened.
His face definitely happened.
There you
Not
go.
Disagree.
It's just an 8/8 to kill, which is a problem.
Second Warblades is a huge deal now.
There is Arcanist Demo as well for a good amount of damage. And bear in mind, as long as Jarla does not play that mask polymorph, this parrot is still wearing that mask.
Yes.
Urtrus, Arcanist, Hellscream clears it, right?
Yeah. Or just Kurtrus Immo, if you want to go with that.
True.
Okay. He attacks the left, he attacks the right.
Oh, just got a hero power, okay.
Ooh.
Living dangerously.
Yeah, getting spicy.
But still, devolving missiles, parrot, and still get a ping to face as well. It'll be 11 to face. Okay, it's 11 to face, assuming it's a 1 health minion, sorry.
Yes.
Maybe instead, he could just start with Arcane Intellect and see what is offered, or Multicaster. Intellect still gives him the option to parrot, but still has, what, 3 more masks in the deck, effectively?
Yep.
So
Natural
maybe...
Mask, second Parrot, and Dawngrasp.
Jaina, but yeah.
Jaina, yeah, sorry.
So maybe this is the turn that... I don't know whether Jarla should assume Bunny has a way to heal. I feel like Bunny wouldn't face tank it if he had any other way to deal with it if he didn't have heal. Does that make sense?
It's a free health minion off the devolve, so it decides against the Parrot in this spot. Gets the Arcanist on the munch.
It's still another big minion, and he did see, especially with killing the Arcanist now, that Bunnyhoppor, to kill the last big minion, did have to discover a Kurtrus.
That's true.
Do again! That's just funny. Kurtrus Glide, maybe?
My eyes for vengeance.
I'll take the heal this time.
Yeah, makes sense. You can see Bunny floated 1 mana here because he missed the APM of being able to refresh the hero power in between the Kurtrus attacks. What a scrub.
There's another mask, but now the turns don't really go that smoothly. What he's got in hand. Also just on 8.
Yeah, unfortunately for Jarla, this one does seem to be slipping away from him very rapidly. He's on 8, and there's 6 cards left in his opponent's deck. He knows one of them is Jace, he knows one of them is Expendables. He knows either of those cards kill him from basically any position on the board, so... Big trouble. And I'm not really seeing a way that you can prevent this from happening.
I mean, I think what he has to do, right, is just play Mask and hope for no Jace.
Time runs out on me.
He does lose that. He doesn't get optimal damage, but if he plays a Parrot, he's dead to Jace and the Expendables, right? Whereas if he just plays Mask, he might, will probably kill the Kurtrus there and not have a minion on board. Looks like he's going to go for, is it Ice Barrier instead, I guess, with this multicaster?
Ice Barrier multicaster, yeah. This does find him, yeah, the other Amplified Snow Flurry is definitely the biggest deal left remaining in his deck. I imagine the card that he is looking for in particular. Because that buys him a whole additional turn, right? Like, the problem I have with just ripping Mask on the previous turn is it's not a 2-turn lethal setup anyway, right? So you'd rip Mask this turn, your opponent's going to be, like, I mean, let's say the split happens perfectly, 4 and 6, then your opponent's going to be at 16. Well, then what, right? What's your plan next turn at that point? I don't really see it happening particularly well from there. So Jarla decides to finally pull the trigger, draw a significant amount of cards, finds the Snow Flurry, which could have actually given him a long-term way to win the game by freezing the face, preventing all the lethals. But Bunny, having been so greedy with Glide the entire game, finally hits pay dirt as Jarla actually fills up his hand for the first time. Such excellent patience from Bunnyhoppor. I think he had 2 or 3 good turns where the left-hand glide was useful. Then there was a turn where a glide came into the right-hand side as well. And then there was a discovered glide that he turned down as well, which, you know, resisting the urge to glide while playing Demon Hunter is very, very difficult. I think Bunny deserves commendation for how well he's kept the patience here, put himself in a very good position because of it.
Okay, he does have the freeze ping again. Ollie, though.
Magic?
Again.
I've heard of it.
Wouldn't have had the mana, of course, but very soon, if he survives this turn, then Dawn Grasp is going to start becoming like the most clutch, right? Because it'll re-equip Ice Barrier as well as play another Mask.
Yeah, true. Get that clutch little wildfire in there as well.
Only thing with this draw, other than obviously drawing cards, is good.
Runs out on me.
Not sure what he was looking for. Probably just missing something, but...
I think Jarla's missing something as well, honestly, which is a way to win this game from this position.
He's going to freeze the big Kurtrus. 3 Kurtrus on board.
Yeah, you freeze the face still, right, I think.
Still gonna
Yeah.
freeze face. Okay. We'll
I
gain
think
8.
so.
Oh. Good freeze.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you just have to submit yourself to the minion damage on board because you know that doesn't kill you. If Demon Hunter can't really attack with face, it's extremely unlikely. If not impossible from this point. Actually, there's no Arcanist, right? One was used, the other one was eaten.
Yeah.
If you can clear board, get this 10 damage to go face, get Fel Barrage to come down, and get Jace to come down, you might just still get there with repeated Fel Barrages, right?
He can drop an Immo as well, right, for free?
He goes Immo first. Now the barrage. Now the Jace.
Slam Jason go.
Yeah, this is guaranteed. At least 6 damage from Fell Barrages always goes face at this point, I think.
Oh, yep, that's right. Even if they went first, soak to minion, well, there's another Fell Barrage for the final 4. Makes sense. Good spot there from Bunny. Jarla did try to fend him off, but it just wasn't enough. And I think there were just points that Jarla just started to lose control of the game. And like I said, especially in that last one, I'm sure there is something, but I couldn't think of what he was even drawing for at that point. So it was very, very difficult instead. And obviously, the problem that you'd have is even with something I suggested, if Polymorph came down and then the freeze ping to face, okay, but what's your next turn, right? It would have to be like exactly Dawn Grasp to then give yourself some kind of chance, but that's a big ask without card draw. So maybe that was the issue overall. And Bunny gets a win with his Demon Hunter, but as we've been saying all weekend, Sol, Demon Hunter extremely strong. Bunny's not taken a loss with it yet and continues not to do so, but he now does have to move over to either his Paladin or his Warrior.
And that is, of course, the first loss now for the Ping Mage as well for Jarla, as the battle of the 2 undefeated decks seemed to end quite definitively for Bunnyhoppor's Demon Hunter. As I said, I was very interested watching the matchup pan out. I did not go away disappointed. There was a lot of weird mid-game interactions there of, Jarla refusing to draw cards for quite some time to play around Glide, Bunny being incredibly greedy with the Glide, Jarla really valuing his freezes in terms of timing them with the damage, Bunny really valuing his heals and furies to try and compensate for that on the other side. Like, for a matchup which I'm sure these players have only played a handful of times, and most of which have been in testing for this specific match, I think that was a very high-level back-and-forth understanding of how those 2 decks operate against each other. So, great way to kick off the series. Obviously, what we would expect from a Bunnyhoppor versus Jarla series. 2 players making very deep-cut, considered plays against each other and taking their time while doing it, Raven. But now we're going to move on to something a little bit quicker with Bunnyhoppor's Quest Warrior coming out to play. And do we have to say it? Sound the alarm. Stamp the bingo card. When the Warrior is coming into play in these series, in this trio week, in Grandmasters, that's when you really have to start to pay attention, because once again, who's going to be able to get a win with the Warrior here might just be the deciding factor in the series.
Yeah, it's a Warrior mirror. We do see a Jarla there as well with a similar build, but I believe not quite the same. Bunnyhoppor favoring the Rukara in there, the hero Rukara, should I say, whereas Jarla is running the Lord Barov, which sounds like a weird 1-2 swap, right? It's like, oh, do I play Rukara or Barov in the list? But it's close to being the case with Vipers across the board for both players as well. Only 1 for Bunny and 2 for Jarla, so there are some slight differences, but overall, Sol, it really is just a Pirate Warrior mirror, right? Anyone who can wrestle control of the board early is extremely favored to close out the game, unless there's some big shenanigans with maybe the player who gets Captain Rukara down second gets the better weapons and better pirate summons instead, is the way the game can normally flip. But other than that, it's going to be extremely focused on just taking control of the board.
Yeah, I agree. The early game tempo plays are usually huge. The freebooters, both for 2 damage and +2 attack. The weapons, Sword Eater, Whetstone Hatchet in the early game, all of those tools that you can use to gain tempo are generally going to be crucial, because they'll allow one player or the other to run away with the game. The fact that the weapons are so important can also make Vipers a pretty impactful early game play as well. Just if Sword Eater comes down, you can at least stop that weapon, the free fiery war axe, essentially, from controlling too much of the board state. However, one thing that does need to be kept in mind is Mr. Smite as well, because Mr. Smite can be a way to scam a win if you're behind. If you're the player that has fallen behind on that early initiative, you can use Smite to scam a win later. But this is a Mutinous deck as well, so holding Mr. Smite in hand for kind of a bit of extra charge damage can come back to bite you when the player who's ahead on board just slams Mutinous on curve and then gobbles up your 6/5 into a giant game-ending minion. So traps on both sides, but I think this one is going to be largely decided by the battle for the early board control.
Do you like, because of that, and especially because of Bunnyhoppor's hand, the coin 1 drop here? Because he's got coin 1, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 plus, hopefully, 2 at that point.
Man, that is some good counting, Raven.
Those were numbers.
They sure were.
You like it though, right? Look at the curve, because Scamp that he has for turn 2 also draws a card, which gives him more options going forward, of course.
Yep.
This is the kind of opening I'd love to have when I'm Pirate Warrior.
Oh, no. The forbidden play, Raven.
Shiver?
I mean, honestly, anything to avoid turn 2 armor up with Pirate Warrior. He's not playing it next turn either.
And also, because of
Playing a
exactly
3-drop next turn.
because of exactly what that 1-drop is, you just sort of play it out. Jarla armors up, let's say. Then he plays a 3-drop. If it's a 3 health 3-drop, which more than often it will be, then by that time, Bunny probably has drawn the weapon, which costs 0, so it's always equipable, and then means the 2-1 plus the weapon goes into the 3 health minion, which leaves you even further behind, right?
Agreed. I think I would have shot it. Jarla disagrees. Well, I'm sticking to my guns. I would have spent at least half my mana that turn on something relevant as opposed to armoring up.
Bunnyhoppor does have an interesting choice now. Higher health on 1 minion versus potentially not having to play the captain on 3. Because although it's fine, I think you'd rather have the freebooter, is it? The 3/4?
Yeah. They're all freebooters, right? And every card in this deck is a freebooter.
Stormwind freeboot, I guess.
Yes.
Is the 3/4. Because I do wonder if just having the chance at more options for turn 3 is worth more. Because now, unless Bunnyhoppor top decks one, I think he is just resigned to playing this captain.
I really like this, by the way, going with the 2/3 Bloodsail Raider over the 2/2 Harbor Scamp. It means if any 3/3 comes down, of which there are numerous options for a 3/3 to come down this turn, particularly from a Pirate Warrior who's shown you they have a bad start, then boom, South Sea Captain value trade. Even if Cargo Guard comes down here, well then South Sea Captain is still going to activate the draw of the weapon, in which case you are still absolutely in business because you still have that weapon discount. So then value trade from the Bloodsail Raider plus the weapon is going to be the perfect trade as well. So this really covered all bases. Playing any 2-drop achieves the thing with this, where this happened, where you value trade into Cargo Guard with the weapon. However, he dramatically improved his turn against a 3/3 coming down instead by playing the minion with the extra health. Doesn't need cards right now, so just play max stats on board and take advantage of that.
Double Harbor Scamp next turn as well is going to be really nice for Bunny, whereas Jarla is still just stuck. Like, yeah, he gets to play South Sea's Captain, still not drawn his weapon, and finally does commit the Shiver to the other South Sea Captain on the other side of the board, but it's just always going to be falling behind. I think I still like the double 2-drop here, because he's got the weapon plus 2/1 to make a trade into the Captain.
Yeah, you know how this is the right play, Raven? Because 2/2s make 4, whereas 1/3 does not make 4.
Also, we might just draw the Fog Sail freebooter to actually just snipe and not have to trade a minion.
That's true, actually, yeah. So with that in mind, starts with the bigger one, the one that's already received the buff, just in case he does draw a Fog Sail freebooter, then he would divert and go max tempo instead of the other Harbor Scamp. That makes sense. Now he's going to attack first because, once again, he wants a max tempo right now, so he wants the chance that the Harbor Scamp gets buffed again. Absolutely gets rewarded. Bloodfen Raptors are plenty.
Okay, Jarla has a chance now. This is a potentially huge swing turn, right?
Yes.
He gets the weapon, he gets to play Cannoneer, and he gets to swing and shoot the cannons.
Phase 1 quest on turn 5, though. This is not how you Pirate Warrior.
But at least in Jarla's mind, even though it might feel unlikely... Oh wait, he can't, never mind. Just off, right? I was going to say, if he could give himself a chance that the Cannoneer sticks... You always think with Cannoneer anything's possible, but the weapon only hits for 1 right now, right? Because it's not bugged, so it's not bugged, it's not buffed. So maximum he can only kill 2 minions here, which means this Cannoneer always dies. Just Anchorman, right?
Yeah, Ron
Anchorman.
Burgundy, trade, swing with the weapon first, maybe. Again, if you want just max tempo this turn, take the opportunity it lands on the Anchorman. But I don't mind going Anchorman first and then swing into the 2-1, just because you have Mr. Smite and 3 3-drops in hand. There's a good chance that you're going either Smite or 3 into 3 next turn, and all of those options could get buffed by the weapon if you go Anchorman first.
Yeah, so you'd play, swing, trade, right? If
Correct.
you bothered about those minions specifically.
I think that's right. See what Bunny ends up doing, though.
But yeah, there's the pew-pews as well.
That's true, I forgot cannons were
Forget, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's somewhat annoying. I suppose it would have been more annoying to create weird breakpoints on the Cannoneer. The fact that Cannoneer dodged is probably okay in this scenario. But yeah, I still like this ordering. Attack first, then trade, draw the new card. You're very likely playing from that hand of 4 cards that you have next turn anyway.
This is tough. Not only, as I talked about, the person who gets on board is normally ahead, obviously in general in this matchup, but Jarla's not even remotely close, right? The fact he just drew Mutinous means he can't play 2 pirates this turn, so he can't get his own cannons to shoot. It's horrendous, right? Like, that was, the only other thing. If he could play 2 pirates, especially with this freebooter, he could have traded into the 4-3, played the second pirate this turn, got both cannons to kill the 2 3-2s, and then you think, maybe, just maybe, with Smite and Mutinous in hand. But he just can't do it.
What now?
About as rough a hand as you could get. Night face, go! Oh. Every time I'm let down.
Smite in Bunny's hand, still a natural 6 attack, so this is just 13, max 14 this turn if the weapon were to play ball. But I don't think Bunny's too concerned about immediate lethal right now.
Yeah, I actually think swing the weapon into the Smite, tank 7, and then just play Cargo Guard and whatever, a snake. Like, remove the chance or the odds of Jarla having another Cannoneer plus weapon swing next turn.
What if you just do that, but just play Mr. Smite and just go face with everything? Like, is this game actually everlasting?
I mean, no, but...
Alright, it's going to do the same thing, but avoid face tanking the 7.
Okay.
Sacrifice a 3-2 for it. Feels secure in this setup for next turn anyway, which is probably correct.
Yeah, it's still absolutely fine as we can see, of course. It's just that I just wondered, like, the double whammy of the snake has received a +1, so I think it's a 4-4, and it kills the weapon that's equipped. It's just, yeah, just wondered if it would be any different there. But again, Bunnyhoppor so far ahead, it would be difficult to come out with a way that this goes wrong, even if the Rakara's chomped here, which it is not.
Yeah, he needed to chomp the Smite specifically, right?
And the Rakara, he needed to be extra hungry today.
Yes. Yeah. All you can eat buffet, but not only is it all you can eat, he's also brought a stealthy bin bag lined backpack with him, and he's just throwing extra stuff into the bag to take home with him. Student life.
Yeah, wouldn't know, unfortunately. Bunnyhoppor just having a paladin left over with now.
Me either. That's
the old
from
talking
fresh
about
meat.
Yeah,
It's from fresh meat. It's not even a real thing.
the old talking about things we have no direct experience in. But yeah, Bunnyhoppor off to a great start, of course, in this series. Getting a win is absolutely huge because the warrior now goes out of the way, right? That's done and dusted. And now it is just the paladin left over. And again, paladin could easily take a few losses here, but as usual, 3 losses in a row. Doable for Jarla, but unlikely, I think it's fair to say.
Agreed, yeah, particularly in just in terms of the matchups that he has to deal with. Shadow Priest can generally go too fast for the Paladin to keep up with. That can absolutely happen. There's a few cards in this Paladin deck which are a pretty big whiff in that matchup. You know, Iron Deep Trog on 1, not really effective. It's just going to get overwhelmed by pure stats on the other side. And if Shadow Priest gets off to a fast start with Void Touch Attendant, then they're just going to run away with the game before Paladin just does anything particularly relevant. Up against the Ping Mage, the amount of board clears that you have, Mass Polymorph is one of the best cards in the game when it comes to mid-game against Paladin in those spots, so definitely some gas there as well. And then Pirate Warrior, tricky, but if you can reach the mid-game not too far behind, you can take over with Rakara if you get to that point. So it's 3 winnable matchups, but 3 matchups need to be 80% to actually put yourself still in a favored position, and that is not what Jarla has in this spot. So you imagine that Bunny has to be a big, big favorite from this position.
Yeah, and it's going to be Shadow Priest first on the list here for Jarla to start trying to bully the Paladin out of this series. And again, pretty standard list. I think this is, you can argue about the Viper if we talk about standard as what you would see on ladder, because these Vipers you see everywhere this weekend are mainly because of the exact format right now. But other than that, looking almost identical to the ladder list you'd look at right now. So just good cards overall in the Shadow Priest. But you are right, Sol. Here, as the Shadow Priest, I think you need to get off to a rapid start, because if the Paladin gets the 1, 2, 3 drops and you maybe whiff on one of those turns, it starts to get a little bit scary, because then they start dropping 6 health taunts, or Cariel rushes and kills a big minion and has 3 health, so it can't be pinged, and so on. Like, things can start to stack up in a negative way for Shadow Priest. But again, with this opening, it's looking fairly solid for Jarla, having not only minion presence, even though it's small, but minion presence plus pings for the foreseeable future as well.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think it's a full keep. It makes sense. It plays a curve. It has an Iron Deep Trog in it, which is fantastic because Paladin quite often wants to spend their early game playing Hand of Adal and discounted Librams. That makes sense. However, I think the biggest win condition for Paladin in this matchup is Blademaster Samuro. And there are hands that you can draw as Priest, which are very resistant to Blademaster Samuro, with Frazzled Freshman, into, Sottle forgets name of card bit, what's it called?
Chaplain?
2-1 buff thing. Wriggling Horror.
Oh, Wriggling Horror. Okay.
Wriggling Horror and Coltran, if you're playing that in your list as well. Like, ways to get actual good bases of health on the board. That's not the hand that Jarla's gone with here, and we see that Bunnyhoppor does have that Blademaster Samuro, which can basically delete this entire hand in one swing, the way it looks at the moment.
It's something I said at the start of day 1, obviously when you weren't here, but I think I mentioned it to you yesterday, where I think the saving grace for Paladin in this tournament meta is the fact that Samuro, it's one of the few decks that plays Samuro still and can buff it, because again, I expected a lot of aggro.
If Jarla calls this a turn, I think I'd expect Bunny to absolutely take the Hand of Adal here. And he is going to take the ping, though, interestingly, to soften this up. Which means now this will only be a 2 health minion if Hand of Adal comes down. But I would, once again, expect it to happen still.
It's so crazy, though, as well, because we can see, if he just chilled, right? And waited, all of Jarla's cards have 1 health. It's so crazy. Like, there is the Divine Shield, and again, in a perfect world, I guess, right at this second, Bunny would just, like, tap the Trog and Hero Power, but he doesn't know there isn't higher health. He doesn't know that there's no Wriggling Horror right now, and there might be a Wriggling Horror by the time Bunnyhoppor can play Samuro, so he can't just rely on a non-buffed playing Samuro to completely solo the game, right? He has to do his work to prepare as much as possible.
Really? Okay. I'm quite surprised. I really thought the Bunny, or it would be a better play to cycle the Hand of Adal in that position, right? Like, you kill one Trog, a Trog respawns, but your minion got bigger, you drew a card, and your Devout Pupil is 1 cheaper, essentially, at the end of that turn, right? Which I just thought was a worthwhile use of 2 mana over playing a 1-1 on board, but we shall see.
And see, for now, even though there is the Gordon, whichever way this goes, it's still a problem for Jarla without health buffs. Because even if Gordon hit the Trog and you're like, great, it's Divine Shield, it would be 1 health, and Samuro then just bumps the Trog, right? And it still dies. So Jarla could instead, because this 1-1 isn't really something he wants to use a ping on, just use Gordon now, kill off the 1-1, and just retain his board.
Yeah, the Guardian Org Merchant, I had to use my once per game ability to give the card its correct name to provide context to our viewer base so they understand our little references. Is going to potentially be the clutch card. He does use it offensively there in that spot, but just that one Divine Shield could be clutch. In this situation, it still probably wouldn't be, because what Bunny would do against this hand that Jarla's developing is just whatever has the Divine Shield, that's the target for the actual Samuro attack, right, on the turn that it comes down, which is not going to be that big of a deal. But potentially, if he was able to find a 3 health minion or a buff minion with Wriggling Horror, something like that, he could have perhaps consolidated. But this is just it. And Jarla did kind of sign himself up for this, although there is now the Void Touched Attendant, which is a huge, huge deal indeed, because that is the 3 health minion that he has been looking for his entire life, as that will now not be cleared by the Blademaster Samurai.
Yeah, but it is way less good on its own, right? So I still think Bunny will go for Samuro into the Trog if he has to pick a target here.
Absolutely, yeah. If
it's one or the other. The Trog might trade right now. We don't know, obviously. Okay, it's not going to. So I still think Bunny will go Samuro into Trog, kill everything, because a single Void Touched Attendant on its own isn't really a huge threat.
Oh, this 1-1 has to get pinged. So what is your opponent doing? They've gone pass, pass, pass up until turn 4, essentially. Like, they are trying to Samuro you super hard.
The next question, so how greedy does Bunny want to be?
No.
Can he wait a turn and go Samuro Libram?
So I had this conversation queued in my brain. We were going to talk about this turn, but then Jarla drew Void Touched Attendant, and then it became mandatory that you had to use the Blademaster Samuro on this turn.
Ooh, this is huge, actually, right? Because for some reason, I had it in my mind that the Samuro would die this turn, but Void Shard doesn't kill it, and he can't Void Shard and Tour Guide, right? You'd have to actually trade the Void Touch into the Samuro if he wants it gone. Because it is the double threat of Samuro in these kind of situations where, yes, Samuro's wiped your board, you are very unhappy as the Shadow Priest, but now it can just hit buffs and start to keep trading for ages because of its naturally high health.
Right. Divine Shield is probably the most annoying role that Jarla could have found there for Bunnyhoppor, because it means that Bunny's pretty much obligated to leave that Void Touched Attendant alone for now, unless he's able to find Broom, which he is not.
The Trog coming back is so huge.
Yep.
And Jarla actually only needs a little bit more damage to go face. He has double Void Shard. Obviously, he's seen 1 Libram reduction so far, right? Because he just played the Attendant on turn 1. So might be able to get there with 2 Void Shards back to back.
I do wonder whether Bunny's having regrets about not having cycled this Hand of Adal earlier, because not only would he have been a card deeper, could have potentially have found a second Aldor Attendant, something like that, something to make his Librams cost 0, and then this Blademaster could have been coming down with 2 attack. But crucially, he would have just been playing Devout Pupil for 5 this turn if he'd have played Hand of Adal on 2, which solves an awful lot of the problem that was presented to him this turn if he was able to just drop it.
So there's minimum 10 damage next turn if a Trog is killed. Now there's 15. That's
4, 7, 12, 15.
that'll be the plan, right? Just Tour Guide, Void Shard, Void Shard Hero Power, and then next turn there's just Void Shard Hero Power.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Sol, but I think there's absolutely nothing Bunny can do about this next turn. Oh, the taunt, 5 mana, too little, too late.
I'm going to throw the book at you.
Seeker could have made an absolute world of difference there, but he has to rely on Jarla not having any more burn to be able to push the 4, but we can see Void Shards in hand. That's going to be the game. Jarla starts to fight back. Shadow Priest getting a win over the Paladin. Bit of a non-game Bunnyhoppor, I imagine, feels like, but as you said, there was an option earlier on where yeah, he might have ended up taking a tiny bit more damage initially, but he would have got a Divine Shield taunt down before that huge push came through from Jarla the turn before the last turn of the game. So yeah, definitely a lot to think about in that one game, even though it looked like the aggro deck played minions and went face.
Yep. I know Bunny tends to watch these back and then sometimes messages me on Discord talking about his thought process. So if you want to talk about that one, Bunny, I'm very willing to listen. So I think that was a very interesting decision on turn 2. He chose to go with the hero power instead of the Hand of Adal. I think it was game warping in the reality of what happened, but again, we have to be very careful. You need to talk in averages and expected outcomes as opposed to the one scenario that you actually ended up in. But it was an interesting spot because, as you said, he did immediately trade 1 damage off the board with the 1/1 that he had at one point. That also helps him. Having that extra 1/1 on the board then potentially softens up a 2 health minion over the course of the game for the Blademaster Samuro to come down. There's various things that you can think things through with at that point. But, you know, I called it out at the time. My instinct was that cycling Hand of Adal was just good in that spot. So, yeah, very interesting and perhaps game-defining decision on turn 2 there.
Here we are going to jump into now the Pirate Warrior for Jarla going up against this Paladin once again. Weirdly enough, we're going to see the old interaction subtle.
Yes!
Trog versus Quest.
Trog on 1. It's Trog on 1 into Noble Mount as well.
Yeah,
so
it's
be
insane.
Potentially resistant to Shiver or anything else that you could potentially throw at it.
It's just Warrior now. Quest part will be deleted.
And this is the difference between old Trog and new Trog, right? Is that old Trog was so good that it even, like, in a matchup where it's supposed to be classically kind of bad, Pirate Warrior, they just play a whole bunch of minions. This would still win the game because as soon as you got Noble Mount down on the Iron Deep Trog and it's, you know, they couldn't remove it without duplicating it. Actually duplicating Divine Shield Death
Noble
Rattle.
Mount, yeah.
Yeah, like that's disgusting. You can't do that. That should not be allowed.
Jarla's like, this is how my day's going.
Yeah,
Trog on 1 against
really
Quest, feels bad. Also just doesn't have a 2-drop either right now, so
No.
he's oh.
Yes. My spell 7534 hand against the Iron Deep Trog star. Unlucky.
Jarla won't do it, I'm pretty sure.
I know.
When this Noble Mount comes down, I do wonder if it's a conceit.
Honestly, the way this series has generally gone from Jarla, like, the urge to concede probably exists right now. Like, as a random ladder game, like, you would be out right now.
Noble Mount looks good to me. Because even removing the fact that it's Trog, and yes, you could give it more health and make it hit harder, Noble Mount, like, the whole matchup is fighting for the board. You don't want Pirate Warrior to get ahead, right? So Noble Mount helps with that because there's no way both Trogs and the 1/1 Divine Shield gets killed this turn, or next turn, should I say. So then you have Hand of Adal's then, right? To either put on the Trog next turn or put on the Divine Shield Horse, right? Any of those options are great, whereas I think the Hand of Adal might be just a little bit too greedy.
Bunny is going to go for it, though.
I mean, it's still good, don't get me wrong. I just think that the Noble Mount felt like it had so many layers of protection.
It did. There's still really not much that deals with this in this spot, right? Because you are pretty confident that there's no 1-mana pirate in your opponent's hand because it would have come down instead of the quest, almost certainly, in that position, right? When you're starting out Iron Deep Trog on 1. So the only way that even Shiver Their Timbers can happen would involve the coin being played, right? If you need it to do 3 health, which obviously can't happen because then the Iron Deep Trog start going ham. Coin freebooter doesn't do anything, same reason. So I think this is still relatively safe to do in this position. It's just
fair.
More damage quicker. I don't think there's a lot that deals with it.
But now go Vindicator as well. Put another, again, if he wants to go max aggression, it's a 3-1, right? So
Bunny really agonizing over a game that, like, he has won already.
win it more. I told you
Yeah.
this the other day, Sol. You do get graded based on how you win games of Hearthstone.
That's just not true. Going all the way back to Jarla's turn 1 decision, though, while we're waiting for Bunny, even the choice to play the quest was kind of interesting, and I think it was influenced by the fact that Bunny 2 kept. Because if you didn't play quest there, so it was just like a solitary Trog on the board, you then had the option to go like coin freebooter the next turn, right? And theoretically kill an unbuffed Trog, duplicate that said Trog as well, and then you just have
a 3/4.
3/4 on board against a 1/2 plus whatever Bunny played on 2, which might be hero power, right? In which case you're in a pretty good position. However, Bunny 2 kept. And if you 2 keep with a Trog hand going first, the other card you kept is support for Trog, because that's all you keep in that position, right? Because you're trying to snowball.
Or another Trog.
Sure, yeah. So I think Jarla in that spot knew that that plan wouldn't work out because the Trog would end up getting buffed because of the other kept card. But I think in a like 1 keep situation, that might have been a risk that Jarla ended up taking.
Maybe another Noble Mount?
It's always Noble Mount. Banterface confirmed.
Either way, Bunnyhoppor had an option to kill this 3/4, right, if he wanted to. I think regardless of what was drawn that turn from the Vindicator.
Okay.
It just has to be, doesn't it? If you're not playing it now, when are you playing it? You're dead.
What now?
There is Sword Eater, trade the swing into the Trog.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 4/4 in, maybe swinging the Trog over 2 turns. But again, that's what I was talking about earlier about the Noble Mounts actually. Yes, it's cool buffing Trogs and they're really strong, but the fact they're going to death rattle into Divine Shield 1/1s that can be targets of more buffs means that Jarla probably feels like now he's just never clearing this board. Not completely, anyway.
I must choose.
Maybe it is still Sword Eater, and then you draw exactly Shiver next turn. One of copy of Shiver their Timbers in your deck. I mean, maybe that's ridiculous. This whole game is ridiculous, honestly. Any plan that you come up with to win this game as Jarla sounds ridiculous because that's just the spot he's in right now.
Yeah, there's what, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 damage. Going to be another +2 there. There's also Devout Pupil to get in the way.
Yeah.
Now that Trog and Devout Pupil would not die to just Barov trading and dying. I think Bunny now working out whether he actually wants to pre-trade Barov here.
I think he will.
Push 3, trade the Trog.
Yeah, 3 more face, trade the 2 in, play another 4/5 Devout Pupil with Divine Shield, and then your opponent's at 9. You have a 6/1 and a 4/5 in play. Oh, you do have Noble Mounts as well, right? So yeah, doing it this way is very reasonable as well. Wasn't accounting for the extra 1/1. That makes sense.
And that's just going to be the concede. And honestly, don't blame Jarla. I think I would have been out of that game a lot sooner if it was me. And congratulations to Bunnyhoppor taking the win there. A really solid first couple of games, especially, you know, the Demon to the Warrior Mirror. The Paladin, again, like we said, even though Jarla had the ability to reverse sweep just on paper, it's just going to be hard, right? 3 games in a row against Paladin, you're going to get pushed out in one of them, you would imagine. So Bunnyhoppor takes the victory, and he is going to be the one facing Seiko in the finals, Subtle.
Yeah, agreed. And once again, like, I don't think Paladin is that bad a deck in this format. I'm not going to say it's good, because that would be very much arguing with what the stats say, which has it at a 42% win rate deck right now, which is certainly not very good with the amount of people that have been playing it in that bucket that Bunnyhoppor has gone with the Demon Hunter and the Paladin. But I do think it's okay. I think a problem like most of these decks that, you know, people are objecting to in the player base this time around you know, the Quest Warriors, the Paladins, they have spikes, but their results are kind of stacked at either side of the scale. They have these draws where they just blow out and they win very easily, or they have matchups where they blow out and they win very easily, but then the other side of the scale exists, and there's a lot of those matchups hanging around as well. You saw there that, you know, the power of Paladin in certain positions, even with the nerfed Iron Deep Trog, they can just run away with games very, very effectively. At the other end of that scale, they can also run away with games in terms of value as well, with Libram of Hope and Carriel and buffing things up, and Lady Liadrin coming down for multiple copies of Libram of Hope. They can be a nightmare against control decks if they line all that up as well. It's just all that weird space in the middle where all the generic good decks just kind of run over it, which is the problem. But if you can find that window to get it through, as Bunny has done, then you are going to go through to the final of Week 2, which is exactly where we are.
Yeah, the winner will get 5 points, and with the ultimate initial goal from Sottle being to be a 6-point gamer, it's definitely going to add a lot to that goal. So we'll see who is going to make it and become Week 2 champion between Seiko and Bunnyhoppor. But of course, Bunnyhopper's just finished his match, so right before the finals, as we always do, we're just going to take a little bit of a longer break while we make sure both players have plenty of time to set up and get ready. So we will be back with the finals of this week of the Hearthstone Grandmasters.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Mull It Over, a show where we break down mulligans and early game plays. Instead of a specific deck, this time around we'll dive into various spots from the top 8 of Masters Tour Onyxia's Lair. First, we have Dead Draw on Burn Shaman versus Unknown on Face Hunter. By this point, it's already common knowledge that Lightning Bloom into early Wildpaw Cavern is one of the most powerful things Burn Shaman can do in any matchup. Playing Caverns turn 4 without the Bloom might feel a bit late versus Hunter, but Dead Draw still keeps it alongside removal to buy time. Landslide is excellent to deal with minions like Intrepid Initiate and Vulpertinger from Face Hunter, and is one of the most efficient ways to get through a pesky Divine Shield from Guardian Og Merchant. Meanwhile, Lightning Bolt can both activate the Landslide and help remove buffed minions. The key was on turn 4, when Dead Draw had the choice between Novice Zapper plus Landslide to fully clear, or tank a bit of damage to set up the Wildpaw Cavern. With the time he bought with the Lightning Bolt, removing an Initiate on turn 2, he has enough health to get his own board online and eventually win the race for lethal. Now taking a look at Dead 17 versus JP Mixter, you wouldn't expect someone to toss Overgrowth when they're playing Kazakhstan Druid, but for specifically this token build facing Weapon Rogue, Deads realizes he most likely won't have the time to go for the usual ramp game plan. Instead, he wants to get aggressive with a full board Glowfly Swarm as soon as possible, given that Weapon Rogue has no mass removal. Coining out Overgrowth on turn 3 would still technically allow you to play Glowfly on turn 4, however, it's 2 spells expended from the hand, which probably means you don't get all of the Glowflies. Even with the possibility of clean mana expenditure with turn 1 coin draw spell into another draw spell on turn 2, he saves the coin to make sure the Glowfly can come out on turn 4. With the Guess the Wait on turn 2 pulling 2 draws, Deads is able to get the full 7 tokens even with a non-spell card drawn beforehand, putting him in a very strong position versus the Rogue. Moving on to Miracle Priest, Lovestorm shows us the ABCs by keeping Palm Reading and Nazmani Bloodweaver, both auto-keeps regardless of matchup and whether or not you have the coin. Against Youth's Spell Demon Hunter, the version without the quest, Lovestorm is under threat of neither early minion pressure nor hand disruption from Glide, so he's at liberty to greed as many discounts from Palm Reading as he likes, then build a huge board with Nazmani. There are matchups where the Priest has to get going a lot quicker though, like versus Kazakhstan Druid, which given enough time can easily wipe your board regardless of stats, with Wand of Disintegration, Vampiric Fangs, or Krusty the Crustacean. So Judgment, with the coin, goes for the more unusual keep of Gift of Luminance to complement the Nazmani he already has. In this case, it makes perfect sense to coin out Nazmani on 2. Unless Lovestorm has a specific combination of 2 cards in hand, such as Lunar Eclipse or Lightning Bloom, plus Feral Rage or Moontouched Amulet, the Nazmani cannot be removed. As expected, the Nazmani sticks around for Judgment to immediately protect and copy it with Gift of Luminance, setting up for big discount potential, especially if he draws the many cheap spells in his deck. Finally, let's take a look at some of the Owl Warlock games from our top 8. The most common keeps for this deck regardless of matchup are Rune Mithril Rod and Tour Guide, and in the case of Tour Guide, it's most often played on turn 1 for an immediate life tap, followed up by another tap on turn 2. However, we see Dead Draw on 2 separate instances skip a possible turn 1 Tour Guide. The first was versus Unknown's Shadow Priest, where because Unknown had played a Frazzled Freshman that could easily challenge the Tour Guide, Dead Draw keeps it in hand as a guaranteed target for Grimoire of Sacrifice later on. If Unknown's turn 1 play had been Peasant, however, Tour Guide turn 1 to challenge it would have made a lot more sense. Dead Draw's patience pays off on turn 3, where the Tour Guide plus Mortal Coil and Grimoire allows him to clear most of Unknown's pressure, while still maintaining the coin in hand. I asked Dead Draw himself, and he told me this was actually a close call, with just coining out Hysteria this turn on the 2-5, which most likely would have kept the Cult Neophyte alive and out of the Raise Dead pool. Fortunately for him, there was no Raise Dead, allowing him to get a very clean removal turn and finally use the coin to cement his control of the board. Now, the second time Dead Draw kept Tour Guide unplayed on turn 1 was versus Judgment on the Quest Fell Demon Hunter, a very complex matchup due to the Warlock's constant fear of Glide. When you play Tour Guide on turn 1, you're pretty much committed to tapping right away so you can spend your mana on tap again on turn 2. And Dead Draw explained that he would rather keep the 0 mana tap from Tour Guide banked for a post-Glide situation. With this line, he was likely planning to tap and then play Tour Guide on turn 3, but with the draw of School Spirits, he prioritizes removing that card from his hand, as he would rather draw Tour Guide back in case the Glide was coming. By turn 4, he finally finds Rune Mithril Rod, and with his turn 5 set in stone, he finally plays Tour Guide and Touch of the Nathrazim while a target is guaranteed. The 0 mana tap being saved for the Rod can help speed up the discount procs if necessary. Youth on his Owl Warlock also shows the power of keeping Dreadlich Tamsin, the perfect follow-up to Rune Mithril Rod on turn 5 as long as you have the hand space. Even against the non-Glowfly version of Kazakusan Druid, the Tamsin hero card has clear potential against Scale of Onyxia and Locusts, just as Youth demonstrates for a very clean turn 6. And that's all for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you after the next Masters Tour.
we are ready, we are ready to go with the finals as I trip over my own words, as happens at least once a week. We've got Seiko versus Bunnyhoppor playing for those 5 points. Of course, remember, the second place will be on 4 points this week, which is still a very good amount of points to gain, but still, each player will, of course, be wanting that big victory in this last match. Seiko on one side, Bunny on the other. The Hunter Druid lineup versus the Demon Hunter and Paladin. The reason I only named 2 decks is because both of them still have to play Warrior.
Yes, and Seiko has had a good time with that Kazakhstan Druid, it seems, so far this season. 6-1 overall, very, very strong record. Slightly different build, which we talked about fairly extensively in the previous game. Very, very token heavy, replacing 1 scale of Onyxia with a raid boss Onyxia, and then having a single copy of Cenarian Ward thrown in there as well, alongside 1 Guess the Weight, cutting Cold Tooth Mine. It's a very Psycho deck indeed. This is just how he builds Hearthstone decks. I feel like I've been complaining about it for nearly 3 years at this point. But yes, he wants maximum flexibility, minimum consistency in terms of all these different one-offs, giving him lots of options. And honestly, as a defense, which I will provide just for the sake of balance, when you play cards like Moonlit Guidance in your deck, when you have all these options to actually like sift through your deck and find a specific card, then having a range of options that you play one-offs can potentially be an argument that you can have. But in theory, outside of just all of the one-offs that he has, I do like the build that he's put together specifically for this.
What you're saying is, in a perfect world, he'd be playing 2 Frostwolf Kennels in his list to see how that one works out. Here, though, for Bunnyhoppor, Siege not going to deem that with any kind of response. Bunnyhoppor is going to be on the Demon Hunter, I think, in this first match. Oh, sorry, no, he's going to be on the Paladin in this first match. Apologies. So we are going to get the Druid versus Paladin. Again, very interesting matchup, because I do think Druid just overpowers Paladin in many, many ways. But if there is a Trog buff opening from Bunnyhoppor, similar to what we just saw in that last game against Jarla, then that's where the Paladin can just go, haha, who cares about late game, you're dead. So that is something that is very possible, because Druid, outside of a few very specific cards, does not have a way to deal with Trogs at all. I think the only, other than like Luna straight away, the only other way I've seen it happen is the odd outcome where the Druid lets the Trogs appear in their many numbers and just says, well, I have Guff into scale of Onyxia, right? And it's like, yeah, hit me for 14 or so damage in the first few turns of the game, but then I clear the board, and then I'm the Druid late game and you're the Paladin late game.
Yes, we can mess around all we want, but at the end of the day, I'm a Druid and you're a Paladin.
Exactly.
You know how that one ends. Yeah, no, I do like that way of looking at it. However, there is the Trog indeed on the other side. But it is also worth remembering that a lot of the way that Druid blows past what Paladin is doing is with very consistent Kazakhstan draws, right? At which point they just have Wand and Locusts and Embers and whatever else, and they just delete the Paladin from the game. This build from Seiko is a lot less Kazakhstan focused because of the lack of Cold Tooth Mine, because of the fact there's a more expensive card than Kazakhstan in the deck with Raid Boss Onyxia, preventing that from being a thing. Like, this is a much purer kind of token Druid with Kazakhstan as an additional win condition, which means the consistency with which he just goes ramp into Kaz into win the game is not as high, and that means he actually has to play a mid game more often, and the mid game is where Paladin can take over against Druid with the large taunts, the devout pupils, the big buffs coming through. But I do agree, number one port of order is to get a Trog on board as soon as possible, but there is a lunar eclipse on the other side for Seiko, that all-important choice.
Yeah, and the one keep from Seiko was that lunar eclipse, and I love it because although you could argue, well, you always want the ramp as the Druid, you always want this, you always want that, I do like the fact that Seiko knows the one thing I can really struggle with is a Trog, so keep a card that kills it and then carry on playing Druid. But the hold with the coin means that Bunny can combo it with a buff in the form of, I imagine, especially versus Druid Sottle, that Noble Mount.
Noble Mount, yeah. Bunny is a filthy boy with filthy plans this game. He wants to hold on to this Trog for an extra turn. make sure he protects it with that Divine Shield, and as you alluded to, I'm certain it will be the Divine Shield and not just the Hand of Adal. Of course, previously unbuffed Hand of Adal, and we might have had an argument back when it was giving +2/+2, but I think even in that situation, still better to get the Divine Shield down than anything else.
Problem here as well, in the way this is more than likely going to shake out, is yes, Seiko could hero power it and then say, cool, it's got 3 health. But we can see that Bunnyhoppor is very prepared for this outcome. And I think the hero power would lead Bunnyhoppor to believe that there is some kind of removal in there, probably a Luna.
This is a more difficult choice than it appears. Okay, really does not want to hit Libram of Wisdom here. Does hit Libram of Wisdom here. Okay, that is by some distance the worst outcome. Because now Hero Power plus Lunar Eclipse does, of course, do the 4. Whereas if he got it up to 5, that is basically out of range of everything at that point.
Also,
decision now to be made.
Yeah, he could even go for the old Pounce, right? If he really wanted to, with the resizing pouch.
Ah, the old Pounce. Wait, what do you want to do with Pounce?
Kill 3-1.
Oh, so do all of this.
Yeah, do this, and then use the Lunar Reduction, yeah.
But you've already hero powered and attacked, so you can't.
Oh, sorry, yeah, what am I talking about?
Again.
Yeah, no, I'm being a moron, it's fine.
Okay.
I get 1. There's my 1 a day. Get me on Sapcasters, I wanted to be on more.
We're in that 5-minute period. We're in that 5-minute period where Raven's brain has just turned to mush, and he will now go quiet for a second, take a deep breath, and return to his normal level of semi-solid brain.
The best kind.
Yes.
Echo did get pounced though, so I was kind of right.
True. Yeah.
It did
kind
happen.
of right.
Here though, Bunny. Again, that's like weird choices. If the Librams are cheaper, it's a no-brainer, right? Just dump the Librams and then look at the Devout Pupil, because it's not. He could have just played the Devout Pupil out as a 4. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's pretty tanky. You want to be aggressive anyway, but he is choosing to just put some buffs down first and maybe have a bit more of a powerful turn, considering that he does have Aldor to make those Librams 0 next turn. What if he Librams the 3-1, and if it dies, he can actually Aldor Libram Devout Pupil next turn?
Yep, I like that. He's expecting Glowfly next turn, so I think occupying a lot of his planning this turn is how on earth do I make this Blade Master Samurai work? And the answer to that is unfortunately you kind of don't, right? Because your Librams cost too much to get the additional buff to come down. So I do kind of like your play. I'm surprised again to see the hero power come out over the cycling of the buff in the spot. And now the plan for this Pounce comes into effect. Even if a Libram of Wisdom had come down on the 3-1 on the previous turn, obviously Seiko would have had the Pounce locked up, ready to go, kept it in hand as an additional spell up until the point he needs it, and then just drops it to control the board a little bit more.
Yeah, it's because like now this 1-1 doesn't add up to much. It still allows him to trade, but I don't know if the additional trade is better than having a Devout Pupil. Oh no, you can do it now, right? This still works out the same.
It still works out.
Yeah, this is fine. So yeah, this works.
His hope was then potentially also to have the 3-1 in play, right? Which then creates even more potential chaining with the Libram of Wisdom, or a value trade where he'd trade with the token first with 1 Libram and then put the 2 that he got back on the 3-1 to then create a value trade and then drop a Devout Pupil alongside it. That was his plan for the Glowfly. He just didn't really account for the Pounce. And the Pounce ended up being still a little bit of a, I won't say punish, but slightly detrimental to his board state, but I think he's still in a very, very good spot here overall.
Yeah, I guess like the weird outcome, which is where I think I sort of locked myself in, was the world where there just isn't a Glowfly and Cycle like ramps or something, and say the Pounce comes out, because then the Devout People doesn't come down at that point, right? Because there's nothing to die. But still, Psycho not looking too happy. Does now have Bloom and Cenarium Ward, and although it's very mana heavy, it's going to hurt him next turn. We have much real other options here. Looking for Arbor up. Don't know. Know the options, Sol?
Yeah, Arbor Up doesn't even really improve the situation that much. He is looking at Fungal Fortunes, Guess the Weight, Feral Rage currently.
Oh, okay. So that allows him now to Bloom, Innovate, Solar Scenarium Ward next turn, right?
Yes, it does.
And again, he is likely to not die, but I will just highlight. Bunny is playing Mr. Smite.
Which would be exact lethal in this spot, right? 7 + 6 + 2 from the Librams.
Oh, close.
Define for me a card he could have drawn that wouldn't have been close in your mind.
Impossible.
Okay, that's kind of what I figured. Yeah.
Really, it's not too heavy.
All right. A decent consolation prize.
Yeah, never be upset at more stuff.
True strength comes from within.
Seiko. Channeling his inner Gabby, his inner Blythe, and anyone else roll well from scenario modes.
It's just lethal. Imagine. It just fully gabbies.
What's this now? Pushing 10. Seiko down to 5. Will gain 16, of course. But more importantly, the minions themselves have to be very, very good.
They do, yeah. Because just gaining the 16 here, like, yeah, theoretically that's going to keep Seiko alive, but if he doesn't also fight for board at the same time, it's all going to be for nothing.
He wants any kind of taunty boys, death rattles, special effects, like rush maybe, depending on the minion.
Mm-hmm. We're going to see the numbers 9 and 7, I would imagine, as a matter of priority.
Holy. Okay.
Oop. 4, 8, 12, 14.
Yeah, he's just dead, right? He needs 5? Feel like he's going to get 5 from Liadrin?
14, 16,
4?
5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Welp.
I think it's still stack it and go face, right? Put him to 1.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the trades first, right? If you really want to. You don't lose that much damage by doing it. Like, make this 6 attack, trade it in, get all the Liberants back again, put the buffs on something else.
I guess so, yeah.
Seems worth. Could do it again with the 4-2 to kill the 5-5, but at that point you're losing 4 damage. You only lost 2 damage from the previous one. It seems much more of a penalty, so I think you just go all face from this point.
Yeah, and staying wide is good, right? There's not that many things from Druid that's going to deal with a board this big, this wide, this many Divine Shields.
Right.
9 health on the taunt is nice because of Raid Boss and Nixia as well.
Yeah, true.
Not that it's realistically going to come down, but it is Druid we're talking about. You never know.
There's always a way. This is kind of what I was alluding to at the start, right? Seiko had to play a mid game in this game of Hearthstone as Kazakhstan Druid, and that's just where Paladin shines. Just big, chunky, unremovable Divine Shields all the way down. I'm not saying the Trog at the start had nothing to do with it. That certainly helped. But this is a very, very hard board state for Seiko to deal with this build of the deck, where you can't just tutor Kazakhstan, ramp into it, and just skip the entire mid game, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, even if he did do that, he'd be very dead, right? Even in that world.
Probably.
I do think, though, that one of the biggest problems is that Trog early on just has made Seiko have 2 overgrowths in hand all game.
That's true.
Basically, which just shouldn't happen. Obviously, it does happen versus Trog, but generally as Druid, those overgrowths have been played, and then Seiko would have been playing at a position of just way more mana each turn. But Bunnyhoppor did a great job just applying the pressure, even though he had the Trog on 1, held it back quite nicely, had the option then for Noble Mount, kept buffing it up, made it the biggest headache possible for Seiko, and then just built on that, basically. The fact that Seiko stayed behind meant that the Druid isn't doing what the Druid wants to do, which is ramp and then really utilize that extra mana to pressure these decks out. So a really nice win, honestly, for Bunny. Again, I am with you. I don't think Paladin's like the worst deck ever in the game at all, but it's one of Bunnyhoppor's tougher matchups, and I think he did a good job just getting the win. Quick, easy, finished.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I think obviously overall the Demon Hunter should win for Bunny, not only because it's undefeated for Bunnyhoppor specifically this week, but if you take the Druid out of the equation, you'd say that the Demon Hunter has some free wins in this series, right? Theoretically, right? It's the Druid that's the problem matchup for Demon Hunter, but now with that win being taken for the Paladin, Bunny almost has a free hit of being able to lose to the Druid once, right? And still sort of have parity in the series if it comes down to it. I do think Quest Hunter versus Demon Hunter is perhaps an interesting matchup if we get into that. But overall, I do think that the Demon Hunter should be in a fairly strong position in the series, which once again boils us down to that final question of that little sword icon hanging out on the right-hand side of Bunnyhoppor's lineup and what exactly he is going to do to find a win with that.
And we're going to find out pretty quick because it is going to be a warrior mirror here for both players. So we're going to have this one, Seiko's list. Again, I mentioned it not too long ago, it feels like now, without the without the hero Rakara, but the double Rust Drop Viper in there and the Barov. Whereas Bunnyhoppor's list, that I'm sure we'll look at in a second, is running the Rakara, the Valorous, along with a lack of Barov. So just differences there where Bunnyhoppor has a bit more beef late game, but Seiko has the ability to just not lose if he falls behind, right? Barov can help him just equal things up a little bit and catch up if needed.
Yeah, we saw some of these dead cards not really having a big impact on Jarla's game earlier. Or rather, having a big impact, but not in the way Jarla would have liked them to. As he had the opening hand, Smite, Mutinous, Barov coming out, not really what they wanted to do, whereas Bunny was just playing a clean curve of Pirates. That's not any more likely to happen with Bunny's build of the deck. It's basically the same thing, except he has a Rakara where the Barov was, as you were just saying. Both of those are fairly dead cards to have in your hand in the early game. So, you know, it was just bad luck for Jarla with the way those two decks lined up against each other, which I'm just pointing out again now because really this is the same matchup again, right? With Seiko having the Jarla deck and Bunny having the Bunny deck in this situation. But they are both equally likely to A, be going first in the matchup, and B, to draw a smooth curve of Pirates. It's just that Jarla kind of got unlucky in the previous one. And now this time, we're going to have to see how Bunny plays from behind on the coin.
Does have a nice selection of Pirates, though. Be able to just not strictly curve out, but if he wants to use the coin, he can coin out 1, go 2, 3, guaranteed. And often that's enough to really get you going, right? Get that weapon out for free on that turn 3 as well. Yep. And utilize that for some effect. And that's without any more you can draw. And one of the benefits, I feel like we are kind of dumping on Warrior all weekend, but I've actually been playing this on Ladder. And on Ladder, it does feel like a very different experience. And there's a lot of matchups that are very winnable. But also, one of the benefits is your draw is generally so consistent that the games where you feel like it was a non-game feel very rare, honestly, outside of like a game exactly like you saw from Jarla previously. I think generally your draws are so consistent that you're going to feel at least active throughout each game.
Yeah, full keep from Bunny makes sense. As Raven was saying, you could even go 1 coin 1 into 2 into 3, and then that draws the weapon for free, which you can fill out your curve with because you've already discounted it, if you really want to go that way. Bunny's going to play his quest first. He's going to stop and think as to whether he wants to go with the coin play, but I struggle to think of compelling reasons not to. Yep, I like this. Oh, the forbidden play again, Raven.
What is going on?
Bunny's just sat there like, I don't know why everyone's complaining about. Winning with Warriors easy. You just play on curve in the mirror and they armor on 2 and you win. Seems easy to me.
Just play cards on curve, jeez.
Raven just going to his happy place right now. Just playing the green card on curve and going face.
It's good Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Seiko at least got a solid turn 3 play, right? He gets to equal the minion count on board, but actually just have the minion that trades until now. And I do wonder, Sol, is Bunny going to go 1-drop Shiver?
1-drop Shiver, play the weapon. You can then ratchet up the weapon on the following turn, right? Which is a lot of value on a 4-charge weapon.
Yeah, play the weapon, not swing it, right? And just hold.
Yeah, exactly. And you might still swing it. I think there's arguments either way on that one because, you know, you get an extra minion buff 1 turn quicker by using a 1 swing earlier for the sake of 1 damage, which, you know, you might get that damage back with the minion attacking. You might get more than that damage back with the minion attacking. The minion might not attack, and then you don't get that damage back at all.
A lot of words.
Yeah. I do think you will attack, though, because the biggest deal is that you might just draw Sword Eater or something before you've exhausted all 4 charges of the weapon anyway. So I think it is probably worth just getting the swing in this turn.
Yeah, just the fact that you could buff the minion you're going to play next turn, right? It's just nice. Though there is Defias Cannoneer in hand, there is Shiver for Seiko as well. So he has the tools, along with the other freebooter, to actually swing the game back in his favor. For example, even this turn, freebooter Shiver, suddenly he's got a 3-4 on board, just facing down a 1-attack weapon.
Yep, it's true. A little wrinkling of the brow from Bunny. Not like the way this is going right now.
A small bonus he has now is the Ratchet at least contests this directly.
Yes.
Still very unfun. This Mutinous means that Bunnyhoppor basically can't have another dead draw the foreseeable future, or is in big trouble.
Yeah. Also, going second and having coined already gives Seiko all the attacker's initiative in this game. So the fact they both have Mutinous, there's a very good chance that Seiko gets to chomp the other Mutinous first, if not a Rakara first in the other hand. If it even comes down to that point in the game. Yeah, this does look like Ratchet first, then attack, because you'd much rather the buff landed on Cargo Guard here, since, as you said, the 4-3 just contests the 3-4 so naturally anyway. You don't need that to become a 5-3. Considering putting his face into this for 2 damage, which softens it up for the cannons firing potentially next turn, but I don't really think that is a good idea.
Still on 1 pirate draw weapon, right?
Yeah, he's on 2 out of 3 of first quest, so he'll draw the weapon this turn.
He's not played the 2-1 though, has he?
I believe not.
I guess this is just Bloodcell Raider and Viper. Heal the weapon, put pressure on.
Sure.
They'll just, considering you're facing down a board of nothing right now for Seiko, I imagine he trades. Then he's still just easily winning on board. And next turn, he has another pressure point, right, where he can just equip weapon and swing with Cannoneer.
Oh, the Mutinous has eaten both buffs as well, which is worst case scenario, I think, overall for Bunny.
And also double 3-drop. Yeah, I think he would have killed to get a 2-drop there.
Yeah, for sure. Like he might just be in a spot of bother all of a sudden.
Gotta get through me.
There is a whole bunch of cannons ready to fire over the coming turns here for Seiko. Cannoneer plus Whetstone Hatchet this turn. Cannons from the hero power coming next turn, and that is the perfect draw.
We can just play the weapon Cannoneer, swing face, and then see what happens. Because either way, whether it's 1 cannon, 2 cannons, or 0, he still gets a good clear.
Yes, agreed.
Okay. Yep, freebooter to clean up the last 2 health. And now you are right. Bunnyhoppor needs a Sword Eater, needs something to kill this Cannoneer. And also we can see that Seiko is almost certainly just going to slam Mutinous next turn. And by the looks of things, it's going to eat the other Mutinous. Looks like sushi.
It is. Needs these cannons to help out big this turn. All right, sure. That is, I think, the literal best outcome. Out of, what, 25 possibilities? That's quite good.
It's all right. So is this Mutinous?
Actually, I suppose 2 shots to the 3-3 was better, because then you'd face tank a 2-2 and take 2 damage instead of 3. We're being fair, which we should. As journalists of great repute.
Wait, is Seiko on 1 or 2 progression towards Captain Riccara? He's on 1, right?
No, he's on cannons. This is 1 to fire cannons.
Oh, I'm an idiot. Sorry, I thought he was further ahead.
No.
Okay, then that doesn't mean it's just strictly Mutinous, right? If it was just progressing Riccara, obviously that would look a lot better because he could just get play his captain and Riccara next turn. But yeah, that's different than if he gets the cannons right now.
Yep. And now similar spot for Bunny. If he draws a 2-drop Pirate, he's going to go 2-drop Riccara. Otherwise, I imagine he might go for his own Mutinous in this spot.
Well,
Well.
I don't even want to say it, but I think it's Smite, right? Because in Bunny's mind,
I want to jam.
like, if he goes Smite, then at least he's got a chance at dropping Riccara quick.
I like this. You get 12 attack in play, you'd get Mr. Smite in hand, you can potentially draw a Pirate for the next turn. Barov is insane, though. However, it's not a Pirate, which means that Seiko, unless he draws Anchorman or Harbor Scamp, he's going to be 2 full turns away from Riccara at this point, right? Which is pretty slow from here.
Bunnyhoppor might be 2 full turns away as well, though, right?
Well, he's 1 out of 2 already, so he can definitely play Riccara on the second turn at the very least, which, yes, is probably still the case for Seiko, but Bunny can also just draw a 3-drop Pirate next turn.
Yeah, he's much higher chance. Yeah. There just are some draws that cause headaches for Bunny as well. Yeah, no real surprise here. Seiko got to try and retain his board as well. Use his face to tank the old 12. You like this, you know. Oh, okay. Sword Eater.
Sword Eater is very clutch.
Yeah, let's trade into the Barov.
Smack into the Barov, and then he has enough taunt protection, even with the Sword Eater taking the 1 damage. He then just has 2 attack from the Bloodsail Raider, 1 attack from the weapon standing in the way.
Then he has Smite plus literally any Pirate plus weapon swing to win the game.
Yes, exactly.
Which seems quite good.
Yeah, the other option is just to Mr. Smite value trade into the Barov, but I think that is significantly worse. Okay, cannon is kind of interesting. Breakpoints just don't really work in the way Seiko wants them to, though, right?
No. Gonna take the hit, and like, what's this? He's gonna go down to, he armors up, so he goes back up to 10.
Yeah.
Needs one cannon to hit. One does hit. Goes back up to 10, but again, there's 6, there's 9. Any playable pirate.
Oh, no!
Oh, he didn't get any playable pirate. So Rakara Shiva go. Oh, what is this? Honestly. Surely it's Rakara Shiva here, a power swing face, right?
I think so, yep.
Yeah. This is so crazy. But now I don't think there's a single one-card draw for Seiko that would help him here.
Yeah. Okay.
Even scamping to... I wouldn't do it, right? Oh my god. So close. He has to armor up, smite face, and then just hope a cannon hits smite and hope the weapon and pirate suck.
And the card in hand is not...
Is it? Yeah, and Bunny's card isn't smite, yes. I mean, you may as well for a few seconds it takes for the turn, right?
Yeah.
Weapon good enough, cannon good enough, game good enough. Bunnyhoppor takes game 2 in the warrior mirror. And suddenly, it means Bunnyhoppor only has his Demon Hunter to get a win with, and considering he has not lost with it yet, you've got to say he's feeling confident. I'm going to talk for Bunnyhoppor right now, even though you shouldn't do things like this. I'm going to say he feels confident.
Yeah, now up to, what, 4-0 with the deck for the week is Bunnyhoppor. So incredible performance with an individual deck, of course. And like I said, it's a deck that he has performed, a deck that I think he should have some natural affinity for just because of the way it works. You know, piecing things together, kind of piecemeal solutions to problems, piecing together a win condition as you go. It feels like a very bunny deck to get along with. So I'm not surprised he's having great success. And I'm not surprised that that great success is translating into potentially, and now probably quite likely, a weekly victory here in Hearthstone Grandmasters Week 2, Trio Week. Looking very good for the Bunny.
I just want to wind us back to the previous week in Grandmasters. Bunny went 0-2 and then went on to tweet that, you know, having a good time with Hearthstone. Is obviously streaming and focusing on some content as well as competing in Masters Tours. But he said, that's probably me done because there's 3 weeks and I got 0 points week 1. It feels bad, right? It's just unlikely. If he gets a win here, that is not him done. That is, he just needs to not completely whiff next week. And then he's probably just going to be fine. So what a turnaround. And it really does show just the way the points line up that a lot of the time there's still a chance, even if it's just a small one.
Yeah, and to be clear, like I've been talking about 6 points as this magical finish line that you cross and then like your job's done, you're in playoffs at that point. That's not to say that's the amount that you need. Like there will be people that get to playoffs with less points than that, almost certainly. It's just that 6 is the point that you're secure. So it's very possible that if Bunny just wins this week, that is enough, even if he bombs out again in week 3. Like it's a weird old scenario. But last, first, last could just be enough in this year's first season of Grandmasters.
Or even if, again, like, say Seiko reverse sweeps here, right? Well, Bunnyhoppor just has to say, like, make it out of groups, and then he's still looking good, right? You know, it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's just very interesting how the format sort of lays out, even though we've shortened it down to 3 weeks. But we are going to go into the Demon Hunter Druid matchup here. So, again, Seiko, happy there's no chance at a Trog coming down on turn 1, no doubt. But still looking for that ramp, no doubt. Whereas Bunnyhoppor, what do you think? Just the early game is the usual, just card draw, potentially quest progression here? Because I always wonder, or I always find it difficult to judge when to value quest progression over just your general dex progression, if that makes sense. Like your game plan.
Yes. It's a tough one for sure. I think it's more difficult against aggro, where they're putting significant pressure on you, and you generally want to be playing like Fury and Weapon and Fell Barrage, things like that, to kind of reduce damage. Some players even toss Quest away in some specifically aggro matchups as well. Against Druid, however, like it really feels like being as glide focused and quest focused as possible is usually the best way to go, because you need to first and foremost get that quest done, get that big 7/7 down that can potentially get an attack in, be that equalizer for some of the damage you need to do. The only way I would not play this matchup fairly quest focused is if I was just dealt like a big Magtheridon hand in the early game, right? And then at that point, I'm probably just trying to set up to get a 12/12 as early as possible.
Yeah. You know, Glide is there with two very castable cards to get out of hand for Bunnyhoppor, right? So that Glide can just sit there as and when he wants it in that outcast position. So going to be a really good initial setup for Bunnyhoppor. And honestly, based on how his hand's looking at the moment, he might end up going for that Glide sooner rather than later anyway.
Yeah, agreed. And I do think this particular matchup needs some context as well, because I've mentioned a couple of times during the broadcast how the existence of Druid is probably the one thing stopping Fel Demon Hunter from just running away with the metagame right now. However, when you start to move Druid in the direction that admittedly I like, this is not a criticism, but when you move it further towards old school token Druid with Glowfly and Arbor Up and all that extra stuff, the Demon Hunter matchup actually improves for the Demon Hunter, because suddenly Glowfly interacts with Immolation Aura, interacts with Fellscreen Blast, all that kind of stuff, and suddenly all those extra cards you're drawing, the Glowflies, the Arbor Ups, the Frostwolf Kennels, blah, 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 they're not just doing the consistent thing that hurts Demon Hunter, which is ramping up into big threats and gaining tons of armor, which is what the other half of the deck does. So I do think Bunnyhoppor has a slightly better chance in this matchup than he would against, say, the common Druid that we were looking at last week.
Right. Seiko does have the opportunity here just to get Wild Growth cooking, or just stack Fungal instead, but I generally do like to lean towards Ramp, especially because of what you've just said, right? Like, Fungal into Glowfly does not mean you win in this matchup. It means you win a lot of other matchups, but not this one.
Oh, ho, ho. There's a 4-mana 12/12. Well, well, well. I think he's still going to glide it all away, right?
Yeah.
Studies for 0. Skull, Vilephin Trainer, Kurtrus, Ashfallen.
Unfun choices, actually, there.
Probably just Skull. I think Studies when you're about to play Glide regardless is usually the most common time to take Skull these days. Obviously, we used to, way back in the day, Skull was just the card in Demon Hunter, but it's really fallen from grace recently. But I think when you're about to cut your hand size down, top decking a Skull starts to become a little bit more appealing, so I don't mind shuffling one into the deck right now. Okay.
I mean, it's a threat. Yeah, I don't mind it. It's playable, and he has Glide next turn, right? In Outcast if he wants it as well.
Yeah, so, well, that's the thing. He would have had Glide this turn if he wanted it, right? Because he paid 0 mana for the Studies, so he would have then been able to play Glide on the far left side, which was plan A. I think this way, this means he's not going to Glide again next turn. I think this means next turn he's going to play Magtheridon, and then he's going to try and play the tempo game from there. With Arcanist already in hand, he can find either Fellscreen Blast or Immolation Aura to be the clear, or he can go gliding, looking for those things as well on the follow-up turn, right? So this could potentially work out fairly well for him.
Or go Need for Greeding.
Yeah.
Hard card not to play when it's drawn, isn't it?
It is. The fact that he saw Glowfly already does make the Magtheridon a little bit scarier now. He can still make the room, obviously, a couple of trades first, then play the Magtheridon, the 1/3s come down. However, you're then basically giving Seiko the Glowflies that he missed that turn and making Arbor Up potentially just game-ending straight away. That makes this decision a little bit more difficult as well. Still don't hate it.
I grow impatient.
this mental trap as well that it's very hard not to fall into sometimes, where it's like, I might just take a risk this game because I have two more attempts with the Demon Hunter anyway. But that's dumb. You shouldn't think like that. You should just make the best play anyway. There is just this part of my brain that's like, you know what? Just play the Magtheridon. If they have Arbor up, GG next.
What if it works?
Yeah. I do like this though. This makes the most sense. Well, I think we probably lunar eclipse something this turn.
There it is.
Finally, the debut of the Frostwolf Kennels.
Oh.
It's happening, right? Is it?
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
We're back in business. Well, there's Magtheridon again if you want to go for it.
Yeah, Maggie's back. Go need for greed for draw 3, and if he draws any 1-mana draw 1 or any tradable, he can complete quest.
Demons.
I like this. Doesn't though. Also, still no Immo, still no Fellscream either to go along with the Magtheridon talented Arcanist combo.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? Those little bits of removal just haven't been there for Bunny right now.
Yeah. 16 cards remaining. 4 of them are those cards I mentioned, with all 4 copies of them left in the deck. He would need to hit it immediately off the top to be able to do the full thing with Magtheridon. It'd have to be actually exactly Fellscream Blast for him to be able to do the full thing. Ooh.
Polar Arbor, let's go.
Polar Arbor, yeah. Means 18 damage coming through this turn, and now Bunny is going to need exactly Immolation Aura. That's not it. Can still Chaos Strike for it. Has to be Immo. Isn't.
I'll scream. I actually do with double Arcanist.
He can heal for 15, and he would leave 20 in play. The hero power would kill him.
Oh,
Exactly dead to hero power, yeah.
what a slap in the face.
He has to shoot left or middle, right? And then it's 2 4s and 2 6s that are left alive. Yep.
Yeah, but I think Bunny's gone, no, yeah, 21, okay.
Yeah, that's how 20 plus 1 works. I remember.
Basic maths. Seiko takes a victory there with his Druid, showing that this is not going to be a quick and easy sweep. But again, as you mentioned, right, if Druid gets a win, I think out of all the decks here Seiko has, you would expect Druid to grab a win. There's still the Warrior to beat up on, and there is the Hunter. But again, I do actually not mind the Hunter in that matchup. I think it's got a good amount of game. Especially with the odd times where we kind of saw the weakness there sometimes of this Demon Hunter. The deck's very strong, but when you need specific tools, it can be difficult to like rely on them, right? If you need an Immolation Aura, if you need a heal option, the deck isn't full of one thing, right? You need to grab those exact cards to survive a lot of the time. But still, I'm not saying the Hunter's just going to blast through the Demon Hunter no problem, but I do think it's a fairly close matchup, at least for me.
Yes, I would agree with that. Certainly, I have self-confessed been underestimating Quest Hunter a little bit going into this. I have been very impressed with just the added power spike that does come with Drekthar, even though you are losing out on Barret Codebane, which is probably a more consistent card for what the A game plan of your deck is, right? Whereas Drekthar just gives you a B game plan, which is play Barnes on turn 4, win the game, essentially, right? Like it's just kind of a very similar thing. And just the amount of consistent damage that does come with the hero power with the addition of Furious Howl and Dragonbane Shot, like I definitely underestimated how big an impact those two cards have on the deck at the highest level.
Well, I was going to say, for me, the addition of Furious Howl actually makes me not like Barak at all in this deck. In Face Hunter, obviously, it's completely different. Like, that's a different story. But in this, I feel like spending 5 mana on 1 minion that'll draw you, 3 cards, that's pretty sick. But a lot of the time, if that then draws you a Furious Howl, well, you have at least 2 more cards to play first. You know, it starts getting a bit clogging up your hand a little bit and not quite as smooth. So personally, I actually am a fan of no Barak, double Ferocious Howl.
Raven, I have sat here and listened to you complain for like 5 years that hunters don't get to have card draw, and oh, how is it fun to play a card game with no cards in your hand? Classic Raven line, right? Suddenly, if you have more than like 3 cards in your hunter hand, that's clogged, apparently, according to Raven.
No, because of exactly how Furious Howl works, right? That's just true. You can't even... If Furious Howl said 2 mana, draw 3 cards, I'd chuck Barak in there, no problem, right?
Right.
It doesn't.
But what I'm struggling with is the assertion that because you've drawn more cards, that's bad because you can't empty your hand to then draw more cards. You don't need to draw more cards. You already have more cards. Like, the Furious Howl can just be used as, like, 2 mana refresh your hero power at that point, and you have all the cards you need.
I also added that it's 5 mana for a single minion that doesn't interact with your hero power, right? It's just like 5 mana play this pass is not what you want to do as this hunter.
Yeah, that is very fair.
You were wrong, basically. It's fine. I accept your apology.
Look, if making fun of Raven is wrong, then I don't want to be right, okay?
Okay. Classic Soul line.
Check the tapes. I'm pretty sure I've never said that before.
I think you've said it at least once. I'll check my mental tapes. Here, though, as we get into the game, Bunnyhoppor working out if he does want to do that quest on 1, but most importantly, I'm already spying a Drekthar, and I think that can be a bit of a problem for Demon Hunter on curve, right? Because it pulls out just a lot of health on board, and yes, there's Arcanist clears. There always is Arcanist clears, but as I mentioned, it requires Bunnyhoppor to have exactly Arcanist and more than likely Malation Aura.
Yeah, I think as long as you haven't had some kind of minion start to go alongside it, which is rare, then Arcanist Fell Barrage can at least take care of most of it, right? You're going to leave one minion behind. 1 minion is manageable for Demon Hunter. They're going to get some healing rolling at some point in the game anyway. That's fine. But we did see it previously where it was a 4 minion board that ended up after the Drekthar turn, and then the Arcanist Fell Barrage just did not really do enough to pick it apart. We might just be seeing, after Bunny being handed his first loss on Demon Hunter, could we be seeing the second loss in rapid succession as well?
You can see here, though, right? I think this hand from Seiko very conveniently displays one of the reasons I don't like Rinlin's Rifle in this list. Because, like, your hand can look like this the more of these cards you put in, right? And Psycho's running more minions as well. So it can get a little bit tricky to really plan out your turns when you get to do one thing each turn. That's really not what Quest Hunter wants to do.
Right.
I do love the weird mind game against Quest Hunter that these weapon decks must have. Is like, well, do I equip a weapon? Because they run Double Viper, but they never want Double Viper in hand. But what if they have it, but if I don't equip the weapon, I do something else? And then what if they play Drekthar and I wish I'd equipped the weapon? You know, it's just really funny. You know, the hand is shuffled away, and that means a 0 Drekthar for Seiko, and a much worse set of minions instead.
So I'm just looking at a hand that just has an impatient shopkeeper.
Oh, yeah.
The card's just in the deck. It's just there.
Against aggro. All right. Trade it.
It is if you don't pay for it and you get it from Drekthar, yeah, surely. But 3 mana, 3/3 rush? Eh.
I thought I heard you say all these cards tech cards are fine because they've got tradable now, Sol.
I said I criticized them a lot less because they have tradable now.
Well, it sounds like you're criticizing the shopkeep a lot more, okay? Tone it
Look,
down.
I demand good customer service, okay? I'll criticize the shopkeep all I want. I demand to see the manager.
Gonna say, before you even said that, I was gonna call you Karen. Okay, Megatherodon Hunter doesn't have too many ways with dealing with something that big if Bunnyhoppor can clear it up. Just Slate is the only real good answer.
Gonna skip. Gonna skip Spectral Sight to UC. Try again from the other side now. I like a Chaos Leech in this spot. Yeah, makes sense to me.
I wonder if it... Probably not. I think Bunnyhoppor might be taking the approach he took in the Ping Mage matchup of saving the weapon for insta swing, right? Because again, like Seiko, until he plays Beastalker Tavish, the plan is very straightforward, right? With Quest Hunter,
It is, yeah.
ping him down. So he might just be saving it. Different now that he's got the second Aldraki Warblades, of course. Like now he can just use one and it's not a problem. But in general, I think he'll save the second one for like an actual big swing. Now the Vipers come down, though. Seiko has targets for his spells. He can actually start going for this quest.
Fury is a pretty good pickup here. Allows for that insta-heal potential we were talking about with the second copy of the Warblades. Rolls this into Kurtrus next turn. I wouldn't even hate to see this Aldraki Fury Hero Power all go face. Safe in the knowledge that that Viper's only going to connect for 3 from this point anyway, and then you can just rush your Kurtrus minions into it. Yes, it leaves a minion in play for another turn that Seiko might be able to shoot spells at, but it's a lot of damage that gets to go face.
Demons. Demons.
He's just deep in the tank here.
Time grows short.
Oh, really? And then just weapon swing? Or just hero power? Very surprising. Oh no. It's my fear with the build of the deck. There's just one too many cards that just pop up and don't proc your quest. I think, to be fair, like over the weeks, both here in APAC and in Americas as well, I believe, we've seen a lot of the side of the deck where you just play Drekthar on 4 and it looks unbeatable, right? But this side of the deck also exists. Sometimes you just draw all the other cards. Sometimes you draw Drekthar ready to slam on curve, and then Demon Hunter glides you into the other half of the deck instead. That can happen as well.
Yeah, if it wasn't for those pesky Demon Hunters, everything would have gone to plan.
It's true.
Yeah, though there's still the Ferocious Howl that you can whip in now for 2 cards. It's not terrible. Hacking could help a lot, but again, you'd imagine that this 3-1's getting killed, so piercing shot struggles as well.
Yeah.
Unless Bunnyhoppor goes for Kurtrus this turn, which could actually weirdly help Seiko.
It could, yeah.
Demons. Demons.
Which I do wonder if Bunny's play on the previous turn was just very hyper-focused on keeping minions off board as much as possible. Remove the snake, no real plan to play Kurtrus on the following turns because then you're putting those bats in play yourself to give targets. Just try and slow down the quest progression as much as you can. In which case, like this turn might just be, for example, throwing out an Immolation Aura to deal with this and then push some more damage face. But my instinct is still to just play Kurtrus in this spot.
Yeah, well, it's the trade-off, right? Like, Kurtrus gives Seiko things to do, but Kurtrus also can stack a hero power with an Eldraki Warblades in hand, right? Which you need to just work out which way that actually ends up going. Bunnyhoppor has gone up to 5 attack now, could just push the face and use that Immolation Aura to kill off the 3-1 and really try and starve Seiko of resources here. But with tracking, you know, there's a lot of ways now with the help of this draw plus tracking that Seiko can actually, you know, re-accelerate his plan.
Yeah.
Or draw
Again,
another minion.
This is different from how I would have played it, but you can at least see the consistency with what Bunny is trying to do. So I imagine from here, he's trying to keep the board clear as possible. And then say Seiko does get to Tavish, quest reward Tavish, he can then use his rush bats from the Kurtrus to just deal with the Tavish and make sure that isn't a problem, right? And then board is clear, minions are dealt with, yada, yada, yada. Potentially a little bit of extra hero power juice coming through from that as well to push some extra damage face. I would imagine that is a long-term game plan, something like that from Bunny in this spot. Try and slow down the quest as much as you can, and then when the quest does inevitably happen, because you're not going to delay it forever, you do have that clean way to deal with the 7/7.
And I really like this choice. This is something this is the choice I would have made, at least up until this point, is pick the Wound Prey, go for the Snake, hero power face now, and then he always has Wound Prey Piercing Shot, right, for 5 guaranteed, and just 2 procs of whatever, whether it's to finish his quest or whether it's to just start refreshing hero powers too. I like this
building though.
Yeah, I quite like this, right? Because this makes Bunnyhoppor want to Kurtrus.
Yeah.
But the trades means that the minions will be on 1 health. Which is perfect for Seiko.
Yeah, then he can use Wound Prey Piercing Shot in an entirely different way than he was planning on. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Given up everything. What have you sacrificed?
And it comes, VT, 2 damage coming through. Still has that Spectral Sight to fall back on a following turn, hopefully, although it can start to get blocked on that right-hand side. Very expensive now to move it over to the left. He is going to start taking big chunks of damage at a time now.
Wait, what is Seiko on quest-wise? Can you check?
0 of 2, final stage.
Wound Prey.
Double wound into Tavish, yeah, it's pretty good, right?
Because there's always that fear, right, because of how the deck works, that expendables and you're just dead, right? But if you do this, you get this down as early as possible, where like the full mega combo is, well, can't happen unless exactly those cards are reduced, right? So I like this a lot.
Yeah, which they're not. You know, there's currently no reduction.
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. So I just like this a lot. It's just a 7/7. You know you're not going to just die because of this card, but you could win because of this play now.
Oh, is that a draw, Raven? That looks like a draw. That looks like a card. Did he draw a card? It feels like a card.
Like a troll to me.
Would you like a 12/12 this turn?
Am I Seiko or Bunny?
You are Raven.
Oh. Sure, why not?
Okay, cool.
I like Magtheridon as a card, so sure. And Slate's gone. So
Sorry,
now
12-9. My bad.
Right. So now there's Rinlin's Rifle and Tavish that could deal with this Magtheridon, or I guess Piercing Shot, Quick Shot.
Yep, I mean, he has to.
Yeah.
It's mandatory. He's dead to it. Hero Power face, Quick Shot face. Yeah, I mean, this actually does make sense, right? Because he's giving himself outs to deal with this differently, depending on what comes out. Okay, I'm like, you know, this isn't Schadenfreude or anything. I'm not taking joy in Seiko's misery, but just for balance, I'm glad that we saw the deck in this order, because I do think that we have seen a lot of it where it's just been like Drekthar on 4, get rid of all the minions, nothing but spells left to draw, win the game easily. it's important for balance that we saw this happen instead, right, at some point, because it will do.
Oh, big draws here from Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah.
Need for greed to keep on cooking. He's currently facing nothing. A bit of a scary hero power, but one card in a dream, or I guess two for Seiko. But Jace is there, double jump. He could just, I think I just like the need for greed, even though he misses a hero power. It's just tons of cards.
The answer is the shadows grow long.
I guess my expectation would be you've got 24 health and 1 million cards. What would you have to draw to make this bad? You know?
Yeah, fair. I think he gets to draw 3 cards this way anyway and push the 2. Like, I think this is less about, you know, what would you draw that this is bad, and more like, I just want to push 2 this turn.
Which, like I said, yeah, it would mean you would lose the ability.
Yeah. And because, as you now see, because Need for Greed is discounted, you are only paying 1 more for it the next turn if you do need to draw cards with it anyway. It's not like you get the huge spike from 3 to 5, so I like the double jump option. What does Drekthar even do at this point?
Yeah.
Both Vipers and Slate have been played.
And the 3-1, right? The 3-3. It was a 3-1 at one point, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I forgot about Shopkeep. Yeah.
You shouted at him, so he ran off.
Yeah, true.
It's a target for bowler shot, though.
Our enemies will meet their ancestors.
Ah, beautiful stuff. Power Strike, Jace. I think both Furies have been played, right? At 3 damage each. That's 4, that's 10. Fell Barrage was played on turn 2, which would be the 14, but I don't think there's enough Jace juice to clear the 4/4.
Both Furies 3?
I think so.
Am I thinking of a different game in which he did a 2 Fury? Maybe.
I feel like both Furies are 3.
Okay, yeah, I might be. I feel like all I've done is cast Demon Hunter this weekend, so I'm probably just thinking of a different game, but yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. That solves that problem.
Yeah.
There's only
We
one.
were both wrong.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what it is. It's because when I was talking about, like, it was the point Bunny and I diverted in the way we were playing the game. I mentally used the first Fury, and then Bunny used that same Fury a couple of turns later. So in my head, I feel like but no, yeah, absolutely the case.
Can you mentally get it right, please, Subtle? How about that?
All right. You know what? Fair.
Okay, so 9 drops. Pretty not great, are they? But Seiko's got no choice. He literally cannot get to any other total of mana.
Mm-hmm.
Goose?
I mean, you have to know you're dead, right?
Only Nazoth would res Shopkeep. I think he knows he's dead, but I think he also knows he's dead to any of those cards. And he has to do something right. This is the card that does the good thing for your deck. Look at all those beautiful damage spells that are, in fact, not minions. Oh.
Yep.
Amazing.
I don't know what could have got him out of that there. Like, even, what, Lifebinder Alexstrasza wouldn't have really helped that much.
No.
That's probably the best out in that spot.
Yeah, not looking great. Bunnyhoppor locks in the combo, and I believe that should add up to more than 10 damage, Sol. If my mathematics correct. Bunnyhoppor there, off the back of a terrible week 1, going 0-2, Bunnyhopper's just gone all the way through and won the week, banking 5 points and basically making up for the previous week completely, right? I think that's even, fair to say. Shouting, yeah, I won.
Yeah, free, easy. I told you I was going to win. Absolutely wrecked them.
Yeah, it's really huge for him, right? Like, this is pretty much just wiped the slate clean from the previous week. Because I think if if you sat down and looked at these points and how the format works, if you could say, or if someone came up to you and said, what about, I can guarantee you 5 points after 2 weeks, do you want it? You'd be like, yes, 100%, like no problem. And Bunnyhoppor, you know, maybe in a more difficult way than maybe needed over the course of 2 weeks, has managed it, right? And that's such a huge victory for him and changes everything in how the outcome of the season could be.
Yeah, really, really big deal indeed. And I think after week 1, he did kind of go away, refocus, redouble his efforts, knew that there was a weird format that he was coming into, that he didn't have experience in, that he was going to have to put the work in, put the hours in, find something that worked. Weirdly, like, I think he's put himself in a position where he has a lineup that's failed for basically everyone else that has gone with it, and somehow just by sheer force of will of being Bunnyhoppor has managed to just get it over the line. I do think he is an exceptional Fell Demon Hunter player. In the way that he has performed with that deck. Fell Demon Hunter is another pet favorite of mine all the way back before we fangled all this quest and glide nonsense in it. It was a deck that I was a big fan of for, you know, much of the same reason, that it always felt like you were kind of piecing things together and solving problems on the fly. We didn't have no fancy schmancy expendable performers combo back then to rely on. We just got there with straight up damage. But I think Bunny has shown that, you know, when decks that he enjoys are powerful in the meta game, Quest Shaman, Secret Rogue, he is a force to be reckoned with. So congratulations to Bunny. Great performance.
Yeah, and guess what? We can speak to him now, hopefully, because I believe he is ready for his winner's interview. So I think he's going to be joining me here. Let's find out. Bunny, can you hear me, mate?
I can hear you. I can't see you guys, but I can hear you.
Oh, that's fine. You probably don't want to look at me anyway. It's no problem. First off, congratulations on the win, of course. A really big win for you in this season. How are you feeling now? Because I knew after week 1, obviously going 0-2, it looked pretty grim for the rest of the season. But have you got your eyes suddenly set on maybe going all the way now this season?
I mean, you always try your best. So next week is another week, is another format. I'll try my best. I mean, the expectations have changed, obviously, from last week. Last week, I was like, okay, this is it. We're kind of done. Felt a bit down. But, I mean, obviously, I'm going to try my best, and then we'll see what happens. Just, I don't think it's smart to get this in your head. Like, if I win this, I'll be top 4, top 8, whatever. It's never good for your actual Hearthstone play.
Okay, and just I know you touched on next week, new format, but very quickly, what did you think of this format? Because it's new to everyone right now, the trio format. Obviously, it's only had one set of buckets, right? Because we've only done it once so far. But what did you think about it? How did you approach it? And do you think, even though you obviously won, do you think you did a good job of the lineup building, the lineup choice in the first place?
Well, okay, first I want to address something I heard Sottle say before I was actually live, was that this lineup didn't work out. Because I just heard the conversation before I came on. And I don't even think that's true, right? Because, like, I think Gamer RVG only lost to McBanterface, who I saw get, like, the worst draw ever against Monsanto. Then SuperFake made it pretty far. I made it pretty far. So the people that submitted this exact lineup, I think they're doing largely above average. So I don't think this was a bad lineup choice. And that I just got it over the line with, like, playing well. I mean, you play a bunch of bad decks, you play the green cards that are dealt to you, except for when you, like, play Demon Hunter. Which also brings me to the answer to the first part of your question, which is, do you think this is a great format? And I don't think any Hearthstone format that makes pro players or good players play green card decks, which is like, I don't know, Quest Warrior, Libram Paladin, like low decision 1, 2, 3 for curve decks, is a smart decision. And I think with the buckets we have, this was a little bit of a dumpster fire, because I don't think the decks that we played are representative of the skill of the players in these different leagues.
Okay, and just then moving very quickly on to the next week and the final week of where players can qualify for playoffs, of course. Are you feeling confident then going back into not back into Conquest, but back into Last Hero Standing, a format that you're much more familiar with and gives you a little bit more freedom in terms of lineup building. You're going to be going all out in this week coming up to setting up for next weekend?
Yeah. Last Hero Standing went pretty well for me last season as well. So I'm hoping this one goes well as well. I just want to add to the last thing, even though it sounded so negative, what I said sounded like really bad. I think that's partially the problem with the buckets that we played. Like I got into this week very excited, thinking, oh, I can make like, I don't know, control priest, something crazy work, right? And then the more I practiced, the more I was like,
right,
getting sad. I think it's a problem. Like I think theoretically this can work, but you need to up the buckets and probably not do like we had like one good class, one middle class, one bad class. Just scrape all the bad ones. Nobody wants to play them anyway. Just make us play 3 different sets of good classes. And I think it can be a viable format. That's my take.
Okay, and just before we let you go, any final words, any shout outs or anything you want to say before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your week?
I would hugely shout out Casey because he convinced me to bring this format. The lineup. Yeah. Because shortly before submission, I was on the Hunter Druid train, and the lineup did well for me. And then also thanks to Frozen and Vira for practice games.
Okay, cool. Well, again, we know Casey's always been a bit of a backbone of some of the deck build and lineup construction. But again, congratulations, Bunnyhoppor. I appreciate you joining us after your match, and we'll see you next week, mate. Good luck.
Thanks.
And Sottle has returned. Everyone's slightly more disappointed that Bunnyhoppor's not staying with us, but maybe we'll see him next week, who knows. But what did you make of that? Any comments on the interview? I heard you laughing in my ear because your mic doesn't deafen for me.
No, I know.
I heard that, so
was still live. I was tempted to just argue with Bunnyhoppor live on it, but as like a disembodied voice that people couldn't see, I thought it'd be a little bit weird.
Or just whisper in my ear, tell him this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just feeding you debate points as you're live on air. Yeah, but first off, his views on the format, I think, like you said, like his initial reaction was harsh because he doesn't like playing Paladin and Warrior. That's fair. But when he came back with the more balanced take of like, I think that the problems maybe with this format came more from the buckets than the format itself. I think that's true. I think as a format, it's kind of as good as it is designed for the week because you kind of have to put that in. I think that's very fair criticism. And I think, for us, it was just interesting to watch other stuff happen. For the players, as Bunny put it, playing green cards is not the most engaging thing that they want to do. On the subject of the lineup, however, I'd still kind of disagree. Like, Casey brought that lineup.
Fight.
Yeah, Casey brought the lineup, didn't make it out of groups. RDU brought the lineup, didn't make it out of groups. Like, yes, there were some players that were successful with it. Above average is going to be the point of contention that we have between the two of us, right? Because there was enough people that brought that bucket that some people are going to have to be successful. But that bucket has Warrior and Paladin in it, which are both 42% win rate classes. And I don't think you can hold your head up and say, my lineup in Conquest has 2 42% win rate classes in it, and it's not a bad lineup. I don't think that makes any sense. That's
Make sure to tune in next week, where we'll get Sottle versus Bunnyhoppor, the debate of the century. But no, it was great to chat to Bunnyhoppor. Honestly, almost regardless of what the players say, I'm just happy to chat to the players after matches now. It feels like it's been too long, and I think everyone will agree. So always enjoy talking to Bunny, and we'll have interviews next week for the winner too. But we are done for the day and done for the weekend. So final congratulations to Bunnyhoppor on taking the victory this week. As he said, the potential for him has changed just purely down for the victory today. But although we're done, we do know, as always, Americas is going to be coming up a little bit later on to see who their weekly winner is going to be. And right now, Sol, I hope I just get one prediction right, because I feel like my predictions are second place predictions and not first. But yep, from everyone here, from Sol, from myself, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next week.
72 damage both times. Both times he left damage on the board.
Oh no! Why are his cards green? Raven, why are his cards green? He got there! Oh. Sick!
It's so powerful, all these rushes. I can't even believe the value he's got.
Labby with a pop-off. Well deserved. He stays in for another series.